Good evening. I'd like to call to order the study session for the City Council for the City of Wheat Ridge, Colorado for December 4th, 2023. Thank you all for joining us. We have three items on our action items on our review items on our agenda tonight. Item number 1 is Wheat Ridge 102 presentations. Item number 2 is a community advisory group. And item number 3 is an overview of the city's snow and ice control policy and related efforts. So we will start the meeting as we usually do with public comment. I have no one that signed up to speak under public comment, and no one has registered online to speak and joined us online, so we will conclude our public comment and go to agenda item number 1. This is Wheat Ridge 102 presentations. Mr. Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll turn it over to Mary Ann Schilling, our Assistant City Manager, who manages our Wheat Ridge 102 program. Mary Ann? Table. Yeah. Sit at table.
That's what this means. That's okay.
We thought there'd be public comment.
We have some new stage directions coming, so just be adaptable.
Good evening. Mary Ann Schilling, Assistant City Manager. I'm here tonight with Paige Piper, Executive Director of Local Works. And we're just going to give you a little bit of background information on this 102 program. As you know, we have variations of the 101 or 102 program going on now for 4 years, and we've been working in partnership with Local Works for that whole time. How this is going to go tonight, we'll give a little background. We'll have both groups give their presentations. They'll have questions and answers for City Council, and then you guys will continue forward. So to kick us off, Wheat Ridge 102 is a new program. It grew out of the 101 program, and both of the partnerships, as I mentioned, are with Local Works. The 101 course is a 7-week course program, and the goal of that one is for it to be interactive, for everyone to really learn how the city works and to get opportunities to work with city staff and to ask questions and really give feedback to our staff and to learn about the city. And from there, we've realized and we've heard feedback from each of the previous 3 years that they wanted to dig a little deeper and learn a little bit more about how the city works. They wanted to be part of creating some community change. So that's where the 102 came. So the goal of the 102 program is two-pronged. Primarily, it's to build upon the skills that were learned in the 101 course and to allow participants to really be part of facilitating a community change. And then additionally, the projects that were given were hand-selected by staff to really meet a community need, one that we had identified as staff as something that we just really didn't have the capacity to dig into and and maybe just to take on. We've just been very thin lately. So this year, the 2 programs that were hand-selected were creating a green business program and then also coming up with a snow assistance program. So participants were provided those projects that would be both beneficial to the community and easy to hand off to city staff. They worked with staff and the community mentors to create a project blueprint, which you saw in your packet tonight, and a presentation with guidance on how the program would be implemented. So this provides the 102 participants with real-life experience on how to create change, and in the future we anticipate this will be a 101, and then the following year we'll do the 102, so we'll alternate moving forward, and so coming up in fall of 24 will be a 101 program again. So now I will turn it over to Paige to talk a little bit more of the specifics about this year's program.
Thank you, Mary Ann. So as she mentioned, we do have mentors that helped each project group make these come to life. These mentors are business owners, they're very involved community members, and they're also city staff officials. So these projects would not have been possible without the mentors, and we give them a huge thanks for making these projects possible tonight. So these projects, they had, as Mary Ann mentioned, many different facets to make them come to life, and they had to involve the community. These participants had to go talk to local businesses, and they had to work together to understand truly how do you take an idea and then facilitate that change in the community. So the deliverables that you're going to see tonight is a presentation from each group about their entire journey with this project, challenges that they faced, and opportunities for the city. as well as you probably saw in your council meeting packet that there is a large project report that we called a blueprint, which really takes every single piece of the project and the decisions that were made and why, and their recommendation to Wheat Ridge City Council on how you move these projects forward. So without further ado, we'll get to the fun, and we will hear from our groups.
All right, we're going to start first with our green business program. So I'm going to go ahead and get your presentation loaded.
Sure. Okay. Okay. All right. Oh, you don't have to stay. Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm Melody Mascarenas. Thank you all for the introductions. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can just introduce us real quick.
Okay.
But for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Mary Hester. I'm our sustainability coordinator. And so I was lucky enough to be able to mentor this green business project, working with Joy and getting to work with Melody and Dan and Jennifer, who's not here tonight. So I'll keep it short and sweet, but I just want to say thanks so much for all of your time and your effort on this project. You're furthering the work that Sustainable Wheat Ridge has been working on, and I am really excited to see this come to fruition. So just thanks again so much for all of your time and your effort.
And I'll just reiterate, thank you guys for all of the hard work that you've done, Joy Opp with the Sustainable Wheat Ridge Committee. And Council, this project is one of the last on the Sustainability Action Plan. So we're very pleased to be bringing this presentation to you tonight as part of our, goals for what we've been working on this year. So thanks for all of your hard work.
Thank you for the introductions. I'm Melody Mascarenas. I'm a Wheat Ridge resident for over 20 years. And I've also worked in the environmental field, even longer in federal facilities, and also on natural resource damages. We wanted to mention one of the participants, Jennifer, that Mary mentioned. She wasn't able to continue with the program, but we wanted to honor her by having her name on the presentation, and she's also mentioned on the blueprint.
I am a Wheat Ridge resident who's lived in the, Ridge on 38th area for 10 years and have been in the architecture and construction industry for the last 20 years. So very excited to get an opportunity to dig into the green business program and opportunities that we have here in Wheat Ridge. Looks like there's a little graphic issue on that slide, but the purpose partners process aren't actually meant to be crossed out there. I think it was, those are things we like and not things we don't like, but formatting. So tonight we're going to talk about, this is our agenda, we're going to go through the background and the, what we see as the purpose of bringing a green business program to Wheat Ridge, the stakeholder engagement that we've gone through and will continue to go through, and then the implementation, which is really the process of the rollout, maintenance, how the system works. Then there will be a mention of next steps and where we're going from here, and then questions and answers if we have answers. Good. So why green business? Well, green business makes sense. It's smart. We all should be doing our part to mitigate climate change. Buildings account for approximately 40% of energy consumption worldwide, including emissions. But beyond, the science and the metrics, businesses are also important hubs in our communities for social engagement. They can symbolize quality of life and opportunity, equity, prosperity of a community. We want to attract great businesses to Wheat Ridge, and for those businesses for the good businesses to stay and to have the resources they need. There's a financial payback, which goes to the smart aspect of being sustainable. Reducing your energy consumption, emissions, and utility bills is good business when there's a payback period. And there are a lot of incentives out there and public utility rebates and programs like the Green Business Program that we're talking about that can offer those incentives for financial payback. And beyond that, going green supports green jobs and green industries worldwide, reduces our emission, our reliance on non-renewable resources worldwide. And then businesses can also be partners for the city in providing education, awareness, and then feeding back into the local economy and support other local businesses, creating a synergy. And oftentimes, the proactive businesses who are interested and have incentives to do this result in great environments, great spaces to host, employees and their customers. So what is a green business program? Admittedly, I came in with an architecture and construction background, thinking about this really in terms of building improvements and in terms of, LEED and the types of programs that where you get a certified green building. And green business goes beyond that. It really gets into policy and management and staffing and where you source your products and what kind of products and business sector you're in, where you locate your business. And then how you can reduce those waste streams and how you can create a great occupant experience. In addition to just physical building improvements, occupant comfort and occupant health and well-being is important. Goal for sustainability, indoor air quality, access to natural daylight. And then outside the physical building as well, the immediate site and surroundings. Are there opportunities for business occupants to have fresh air and spend time outdoors during the day? Another big piece of the purpose and why we're really here, and I think why we feel so welcomed by the community, is that Wheat Ridge has already embraced this in their 2035 vision statement. And where Wheat Ridge is an attractive and inviting city and community for families, Wheat Ridge has great neighborhoods, is a hub of commerce with choice economically viable commercial areas, and has diverse transportation, and is committed to environmental stewardship. And its residents enjoy an active, healthy lifestyle and are proud of their hometown, and we want to build on that, build towards that vision. And then the Sustainable Wheat Ridge Committee. Okay, so we have seeing a few more little formatting blips, so apologies for that. But I won't go through all of the goals, but this is the forming or the support of a green business program in Wheat Ridge is a goal of the Sustainable Wheat Ridge Committee. So where this purpose partners process alliteration came from is, just wrestling with this big idea of how to really get our arms and our heads around a sustainable business or a green business program in Wheat Ridge, and it could be a very massive undertaking. And we knew we didn't want to reinvent the wheel, and we didn't have the resources to do that. So we were immediately going to look for partners who could help us, who've done it before, who could provide resources, who may have an online platform. And so we, apologies to the police department, we used their whiteboard to to make giant flow charts during our meetings, and came up with this alliteration that helped organize our research.
So part of this program was stakeholder engagement, as Dan mentioned, partners on our agenda. And as part of our research, I went out and interviewed a handful of businesses. And I found that the businesses that I interviewed were interested in becoming green and more sustainable. And so some of those businesses were along 38th, just like in the picture there. And they asked about composting and recycling, what the city has to offer, what programs, as far as like paying for the composting and recycling. One business went as far as they lived in Denver. They were taking their composting home to Denver because Denver composts in order to compost. So they went that far to be sustainable. I really thought that was great that they went to that level. We, the COWR, the City of Wheat Ridge Planning and Building, we got together with Steve Art with Economic Development. We met with him. We also met with Beth June. She was very helpful in part of this research we did to find out more about if businesses were interested in becoming more green and more sustainable. We talked to peer cities that are part of green business programs. We talked to Yampa Valley. They're part of the CDPHE Green Business Network. What they're doing, they're funded through a grant, and it's all through this nonprofit that they run, this one. And the Evergreen was another city we tried to talk to nearby. They are all volunteer, their green business program. And we looked into, we also interviewed a CDPHE Green Business employee to talk to them about their program. So that was part of our research we did. And we researched different platforms. And I would also add that under stakeholder engagement, all these bullets, we see this as a continual process of researching, talking to businesses, seeing what they want, interviewing it more with peer cities. All that on this slide is being a continual process. We found a wide range of industry recognized platforms. Under government-sponsored, funded programs and third-party certification, as Dan mentioned, LEED certified. We just kind of put a few of those up there. We found that the community is looking for third-party certification, looking for companies that are considered green when they're looking online at different companies. And let's see here, some cities had their own programs, green business programs, beyond the CDPHE program. And Boulder has a PACE program, I think it's called. There's different ones in different cities that are not through the Colorado Green Business Network through CDPHE. After reviewing a wide range of different programs, we found that becoming a regional partner with the Colorado Green Business Network, and you'll see that sometimes in our slide, this CGBN acronym, that's for Colorado Green Business Network, that Wheat Ridge becoming a regional partner with the Colorado Green Business Network was the best option. And this is a high-level overview of how the program works. You have the Colorado Green Business at the top of the triangle, your regional partners working with the local business, and Wheat Ridge being the regional partner, working with the over 900 local businesses that we have in Wheat Ridge. Not all at once, but gradually working to get businesses on board. Some of the benefits from the CGBN to the City of Wheat Ridge. And again, we have the acronyms there, the COWR, the City of Wheat Ridge, and the Colorado Green Business Network. The benefits is it's a free and totally volunteer program, and they support and reward businesses for being engaged. And it's an organization that tries to get people, or I should say businesses, more sustainable. So that's the goal of this whole thing with a Green Business Network. We have, the regional partners would have access to industry tested and recognized program. And part of that is like the training and mentoring they would provide, not only to the sustainability coordinator in the city of Wheat Ridge, but also to the businesses. And they have a green business tracker that they use, and there's different levels that will go into that detail of when you apply to be a business with the green business tracker, you get so many points, and then every year you're using this program to track your business, from your using LED lights to changing, putting in solar, and they're tracking all that, and you're getting points for that. You have access to co-branding with the Green Business Network, kind of like how Dan put up on the side of the slide over there, City of Wheat Ridge and the Green Business Network. There's different free workshops and events that they have available to the different businesses also, and to the city. The benefits for the business are ongoing technical assistance, opportunities for fundings, newsletter, access to the free workshops again. You could have quarterly events with technical experts, and your businesses could attend those, is one example. There's the support and recognition you get from the Green Business Network. And the business also has, if you join the Green Business Program, it helps reduce costs, but also helps with compliance. So because you're working with CDPHE, some businesses are permitted. There's a permitting process that some businesses like hazardous materials, waste management go through. So you'd be working with the Colorado Green Business Network and also working with your permitting entity with that. There's, like it says that there's support with regulatory assistance. They will go into a business, the Colorado Green Business Network, and do an evaluation of the business that could take up to an hour, and provide you with kind of a roadmap of what you could do to become more green, and that you could use that continually in the business to help support becoming more green. These are the different recognition levels I mentioned, kind of like the Olympics. You got bronze, silver, and gold. And there's also a green level, which is like the basic level. But when you apply into the program, so once Wheat Ridge becomes a regional partner, which we'll go into that more later, but there's a timeline for that. Then a business, once we become the regional partner, then different businesses would go into the tracker and apply to become into the program. And you'd have from that, a business could be on the bronze level, silver, or gold, depending on how much effort they want to put into it. It's a total of 380 points from this CGBN, but you can start off on a low level and work your way up, or just always stay at that level, however you want to do it. This right here is a map provided by the Colorado Green Business Network. Also have a link to their page right here. The closest regional partners to Wheat Ridge are Fort Collins, Yampa Valley, Steamboat Springs, who we interviewed. And I don't know if I mentioned, but their program is funded by a grant through their USDA, through this nonprofit that runs it. Evergreen, Erie, and many others. We heard that Boulder and Denver are applying from the CGBN rep that we met with. And there's other cities applying now in the process also. Did I miss anything?
Thanks, Melody. So the implementation or process of how we would first apply and then go through a pilot period and then eventually maintain and grow the program would begin with if we were accepted in the program, and it seems there's a very good likelihood in talking to the staff from CGBN. They would provide 10 hours of training for up to 2 staff members, so Mary one other staff member. They would be heavily involved in the first year. The parameters of the pilot program are really a 2-year framework. The first year, the state would focus on training the staff, and then they would really be involved in bringing in the first few businesses and really showing and supporting the Wheat Ridge staff or regional partner staff what the process is. And then once you get to the second year, so that would be really January of 2025 at this point, if we register next by this February, coming February, then Wheat Ridge would be really up and running and managing the program mostly independently, with the opportunity to have continued support from the CGBN. To stay in the program, the regional partner needs to engage with at least 5 businesses a year and then report back to the state, and then include the co-branding on the websites and logos, etc. So there's no direct financial expense for being a regional partner or applying. There's some internal expenses associated with a dedicated staff member needed to run the program locally. So after that training and pilot period, and during the pilot period as well, a staff member the anticipated workload would be about 10 hours a week for that staff member, with some additional support needed for intensive periods. Some of the more intense periods would be signing on a new business or reaching out, doing site assessments, doing additional research if there are special requirements. So there's so many, there's such a range of business types and business needs and business sizes. There's businesses who are very simple, just mall tenants or retail tenants, and then there's hospitals. There's very complex organizations who would need a lot of support from the professional industry in terms of design, building, mechanical HVAC, and on and on. So to get that expertise, the local staff member, of course, no single person is going to have all the answers. So one of the areas that the CGBN really provides a valuable resources is in their directory of resources and their long list of partnerships, and they can really point you in the right direction. What kind of what kind of resource or opportunity may be available to you, where you should start looking for your particular program. Additional budget items could be marketing materials and outreach. So the program in Yampa Valley, their initial budget for the first year was largely spent on lunches and outreach and marketing materials, bringing in some outside consultants to continue the training. There is a possible stipend for an intern. There's an opportunity for an intern to be, there's a scholarship that the CDPHE provides for an intern in the first year. We would also be applying for that. Going beyond that first year, I believe it would be kind of within the city budget to provide the intern or additional staff. Again, just the application and training timeline. So in the year one, so February 1st, this would be upcoming February 1st, 2024. We would have our application in to be reviewed by the CGBN. They'll review in the month of March, and then we'll hear back. And then by April, we'll be starting to pilot and bring in new businesses. We'll be doing training and kind of officially in the program. The year 2, as I mentioned, January 2025 would be when Wheat Ridge would take the program on more independently. And
So as Dan mentioned, the next steps are the application, training, and onboarding. So the application would take maybe 1 to 3 hours, I think is what the CDPHE Green Business Network staff member told us. The training and onboarding is 10 hours. That would be Mary and maybe what we're imagining is someone from the Sustainability Committee. Pursuing funding and grants for the intern. Like Dan mentioned, they have a grant opportunity through the CGBN. They mentioned to us when we spoke with them. They also have other grant opportunities for businesses themselves. They had like I think it was a $15,000 grant opportunity through CGBN that they mentioned for businesses to do improvements. And I know that the city of Wheat Ridge actually also has a grant program for businesses that I mentioned when I went out and did the interviews with the various businesses. We see that possibly in the future there might be a need, as we're mentioning an intern, maybe increase staffing in the sustainability program or something to support the program and budget in the future, but this would be probably in like 2025 or so is what we're thinking. The long-term goals would be to increase business participation. We mentioned getting 4 businesses on board that first year, maybe increasing it gradually. And we'd like to see Wheat Ridge raise the bar to make their program maybe a standard that other cities can look at and go, we'd like to be like that green business program that Wheat Ridge has. See, their program has technical experts that they can go to ask questions, the businesses can, and use that expertise we have here in Wheat Ridge. Maybe those people would speak at these quarterly meetings, and eventually become self-sustaining and a model program to other peer cities is what we see with this program.
So in conclusion, positive, thank you, positive partnership for Wheat Ridge, and I think it would benefit local businesses as well as the greater community. We really think this advances the goals of the 2035 vision and sustainable action plan, and it'll be a source of pride for the city. So, any questions or comments? I think we may have gone a little long. So,
Okay, thank you very much. Great presentation. I'll start with Councilor Dozman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I have several questions. I'll just start with the first couple. As far as business engagement, can you kind of give an estimate of how many businesses you engaged with and of what type they were? Were they restaurants, commercial, retail?
I was able to engage with just 2 businesses. One was a bakery and one was a restaurant on 38th, to talk to them about sustainability and their practices and what they did. We had goals in mind to engage with more businesses, but we weren't able to because, like I said, partway through, one of our members dropped off. And I think other part of it too was I called my doctor's office, is in Wheat Ridge, so trying to see how they could become more sustainable. But I think that I was going to show you these. I got these cards from Paige so I could give to businesses when I went out, because people are leery of just someone coming into their business and talking to them. So I used this when I went to the different restaurants to talk to them about the program. So that was our sample we used.
So that's a very small number compared to the businesses that we have registered in the community. And so what do you think the desire is for businesses to actually implement some of these programs?
I would say the desire is high. I know that the Sustainability Committee actually had interviewed businesses before this in their research leading up to this, and so they had some other businesses they had interviewed, and those businesses were interested in the program. We could definitely, if we had more time, interview more businesses in the future. I think that having intern on board or someone who has the time to go out and talk to more businesses would be valuable for the city to do that. We just didn't have the time to do that. We've all worked full-time, and this was a volunteer project.
yeah, we also wanted to reach out to businesses who we already knew were interested and wanted to specifically get feedback from those businesses. We already knew that we would be rolling this out, so it wasn't as much a question of, surveying and would you like this? It's more like, how can we tune this to meet the needs. You've already kind of gone partway down the road. How can we make it better? And then I think, yeah, instead of doing the more quantitative piece, which I think we will, and that is in the plans, getting really more like quality information. Unfortunately, like Melody said, we didn't have that much time. We did send out a lot of surveys and got feedback back from staff, not so much from the building owners and landlords who weren't really on site as much.
Councillor Hulteen.
Thank you, Mayor. Wow, thank you guys for your time on this project. It takes, as I'm sure you learned in this process, it's a lot of work to come up with ideas and vet them out and then go out into the community. And so I'm sorry you lost a team member. I know that has a huge impact, but I just really want to recognize your willingness as a volunteer to do the program, because in my experience, it's the best way to learn how the city works and in the role of its citizens in shaping it. And I will say, there's no better city on the planet Earth than Wheat Ridge at taking work like this and actually doing great things with it. So thank you for that. I do have a couple of questions for you. First of all, you know, if this were wildly successful, like what would you see the impact, or what would be different in like 2 and 10 years in the city?
Yeah, great question. And just to address your first point, it really was rewarding to be a part of the process, and so we thank everyone for the opportunity, and especially our mentors and directors who gave us great guidance. Best case scenario, what this would look like is just a lot of interest and engagement and excitement, and some businesses that we could really pilot and spearhead, and what, pave the way, and what this could be. I think it would be, ideally, Wheat Ridge would really get behind it and, provide that additional staffing and support that we would need to have a more robust program. Admittedly, CGBN is there's a low barrier for entry for most businesses, so and that's by design. That's the point. So it's not the most rigorous program. I think if you want more rigor, you would pursue one of the independent certifications. And there is a lot of greenwashing out there where we have to be kind of judicious in how we move through it, and how we assign points, and how we approve. And so there's a lot of education in that. There's a lot of additional expertise. So it would be kind of building that community of support, consulting professionals in business and design and construction. And so I think it would just be a big team effort. I think ultimately we would get better buildings and better businesses.
I also wanted to add that I see it as the program growing with businesses getting involved. Like, I know there's business luncheons, spreading the word that way. There's the business walk, finding out more information, spreading the word about this, getting volunteers to maybe spread the word about this, or also going out to businesses. So all that, as far as it growing in the community, I see part of that being, if you go in Wheat Ridge and you don't see a lot of recycling, just starting on those low-hanging fruit level, I think would be good when these businesses would join this Green Business Network. I see it expanding that way, just gradually increasing over the years.
And just one more thing to add is seeing it start to be adopted and embraced by other departments, like planning and building, and landscape, and public works, and Parks and Rec. And I think seeing the synergies that could happen there, I think, the building and planning goes through their code adoption cycles, where they recommend amendments to the building codes, and that's a place where we could plug in and look at best practices and bring in consultants. And then the planning, business check-ins that the planning department does yearly, every year, where they check in with every business in Wheat Ridge, and how that becomes part of the packet to look, here's your opportunities, here's some incentives, here's some fees that can be, rolled into the business licensing process that's already in place that could be waived if you're a participating member. Businesses who don't participate, maybe they're the ones that are paying for the, some of the additional fees to support that program. So I think looking at those opportunities and those intersections would be a way this would be successful.
Great, thank you. So you kind of addressed my second question a little bit, but my experience with anything kind of programmatic like this that's around building a culture. And so I'm curious, as you were working on this, like what role you saw the Wheat Ridge Business Association or the Chamber as partners around doing that outreach and encouragement for businesses and building the culture of participation.
Yeah, maybe you guys want to talk to that?
Sure. Yeah, I think really just to kind of expand on what Dan and Melody have already said, like the goal would be to really, as much as possible, just have this seamlessly be integrated into city processes and other organizations in Wheat Ridge. So I think with the Business Association and the Chamber of Commerce, if we can kind of utilize some of their communications that they're already sending out, help us spread the word, get more businesses on board. If we could attend their meetings, or we've tossed around the idea of like quarterly lunch and learns and having experts come in, but just kind of working with what sort of processes and I guess programmatic offerings they already have on board to just integrate a green business aspect into that, is how I see that happening.
Okay, great. Well, my couple of comments just are, I think it would be a really great opportunity for an intern in the city to come in and promote this program. I could really see that being a great learning opportunity for an intern and a good use of a city intern. The thing I'm a little concerned about is just small businesses, and a lot of business owners are busy. And also, like, how do you get to the decision maker in terms of like being able to take the actions that are needed for earning the points and the different certifications is a little bit tricky. So I think, if we're looking at a 2024 application deadline, I'd be interested in kind of just learning about how we would address some of those barriers of reaching, appropriate people within the businesses and maybe getting a little bit more feedback. I know that Sustainable Wheat Ridge has been working on this, but getting a little bit of a better understanding about there's like customer-facing businesses, there's like commercial office buildings, like we've got different types of businesses, and sort of looking from a climate impact, like what would be a lens of going into this where we'd be, being able to effectively reach businesses and having the kind of impact that we want with our city goals. But good work. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Councilor Weaver.
Thank you so much for all of this work. My question piggybacks on what Councilor Hulteen was commenting on. I am in the food and farming business in Wheat Ridge, and I think that what can happen, I have applied for some of these different green business certifications, and it occurs to me that to many of your points that you've made, there's some low-hanging fruit around businesses that we have in Wheat Ridge that are food-based. And to your point, they often don't have time, but they are and Jenny and I could probably talk about, we buy compostable packaging, we spend more money on it, we make sure our waste stream is good, we try and, in the farming business, I'm helping food businesses remove waste to feed to animals. But a lot of those things are not listed on these higher level green business types of things. And I love all of this program and spent some time just personally going through it. And I think it's a great option. I would also love to see, and just hear your comments on this, I'd love to see some sort of local Wheat Ridge way that we as a Wheat Ridge business can say, hey, I'm doing these sustainable things, and not to greenwash, to your point, but sometimes I get asked, I know Jenny gets asked, tell us what you're doing that's sustainable, but it doesn't quite check all the boxes on a more higher level. I can't afford to put solar right on my building right now because there aren't it's a long story, but there aren't the right incentives. So but I am doing a lot of other things, and I'd love for people to know that, because they have those questions when they buy a food product from the farm, or I'm sure when they buy things from you. So it would be really cool, and I realize this is above and beyond what you did, and I think this is absolutely fantastic, but to both the Sustainability Committee and sort of your thoughts, it would be fun to have sort of that beginning level of because I know that there are many people who own small businesses in Wheat Ridge who want to do the right thing. They're choosing to do the right thing, but they don't have time, you know, because they're spending so much time finding a farmer to pull out their waste stream, they're not reporting it to anybody, and they're not, does that make any sense? It would just be neat to have sort of a stair step, because some of us are never going to get to the point where we're going to be LEED certified, because we already are working with old buildings and things like that. So my comment would be, this is fantastic. Let's make sure, to Rachel's point, it can sort of, we have something that can consider all businesses, and they can feel a part of it, even if they never get to that higher level of official state CDPHE certification.
Oh, it has all these levels, you know. You have the bronze, silver, gold. There's even a green level where you can just do basic. You could become part of this network. And then you'd also meet other businesses, not just in the, you know, your lunches, your Chamber of Commerce lunches, but you can meet other businesses through the Green Business Network that are doing similar things, or they could encourage you, or you could find out what they're doing to be more sustainable that might not have this economic impact on the business. That was a lot of, you know, I know I interviewed only 2 businesses, but I got the same thing from both of them, that the margins are really thin, that it costs to recycle, to compost, recycling containers, compostable containers, like how they can afford that. And with COVID and the margins being so small now, is how can we be more green when all that's up against us? So I think I see this program as, you know, them going into their peer cities or peer businesses and getting ideas through the Green Business Network is how I look at it in the future.
And I think that's awesome. I just would hope that Wheat Ridge could also reach out to those of us who do not have time to do a lot of that networking, because I do think it's a fantastic program, and I love what you guys did here. So thank you.
So the Green Business Network has been active for about 20 years, but the Regional Partnership Program has only been introduced in the past few years. And I think the reason for that is so that the local communities can address those local needs better.
Yeah.
So there's not just, you know, a small business owner working with the state, right? So that there's a local network for support and, you know, what, you know, specific, you know, issues you may have in that community. So yeah, I think that is the goal, that there's, you know, that it's community-based, right? And I think as Wheat Ridge kind of grows and takes the baton and runs with it, it will look more and more like a Wheat Ridge program over time. And you know, we're really the CGBN is a stepping stone and helping us get off the ground to do it. But yeah, long term, you know, I think Wheat Ridge is really the umbrella, and CGBN is a tool that we're using to get.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Mayor Pro Tem Stites, and then Councilor Hoppy will follow.
Thank you,
Mayor
Mr.
Pro
Mayor.
Tem.
And thank you, Melody and Daniel, for all your hard work on this. I know this is a big undertaking, and I agree with Councilor Hulteen. The best way to learn a city is kind of get involved and start, you know, playing with stuff and moving it around and talking to people and figuring out what you want. And when you ask questions, people do tend to have answers. Sometimes you don't want to hear them, but sometimes they do have answers for you. So I appreciate that hard work. You know, I own a business too, and, you know, as I was thinking about this, you know, when you implement new things in your business, the hardest thing is when you get it off the ground and get it started, right? So, you know, I agree with Councilor Hulteen. You know, one of the biggest things is to jump in and get the Chamber of Commerce and the Business Association involved, and that's how you kind of get past the gatekeepers at the front desk, because all those owners are in those rooms, and you can talk to them a little bit about these programs and how they can be beneficial. And I think maybe, you know, since you're tracking points and stuff like that, doing a challenge or something like that between the businesses might be fun. When you talked to CGBN, did they have industries in the city that are good to start with, or do we have a list from the Sustainability Committee of businesses who have raised their hand and said they're wanting to start a program like this?
Once Wheat Ridge becomes a regional partner, which hopefully that would all occur early 2024, they can start having businesses apply to join the network, right, or be businesses. And I would think that the businesses that the Sustainability Committee already interviewed might be the first ones on that list to join. I don't know if Joy and Mary could add to that.
Yeah, I think starting with the businesses that we have talked to who seemed interested is a good place. And we've also talked about, so for the past 3 years, the Sustainable Wheat Ridge Committee has given out a Green Business Award each year at the annual awards breakfast. And so, you know, beyond the winners, we've also had additional nominees. So I think starting with those businesses would give us kind of an in of people who are already doing these things and theoretically, I think, would be really interested.
Okay, that's great. And then it said somewhere about 10 hours of staff time. Do you have 10 hours of staff time to allocate to?
Yes, I've thought a lot about this. I think with the timing of when we'd kind of be getting this up off the ground, maybe by midway 2024, we would have some of our other big projects right now starting to come to a close, like our action plan update and our waste engagement project. So yes, I think I can make it work, and we'd have to keep working with the Sustainable Wheat Ridge Committee, but I would hope to rely on them and have that be a partnership.
Okay, great, thank you. Well, and I agree. I think something like this, I think we have businesses in this community that need a little bit of guidance, but want to take steps to be a little bit more green. And, you know, every industry is a little bit different in how that's going to look, but I think especially a community-facing business like, you know, myself or, you know, a restaurant or something like that, they're going to want to do especially what our customers expect us to be doing, which is trying to help out where we can. So I think that's a huge thing. So thank you for your hard work, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Hoppe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm sorry I have to join you guys on Zoom again. I have been feeling very ill, working through it. But so one question I have is, when I'm looking at the program marketing list, I don't see What's Up Wheat Ridge on that list. And here's to kind of Councilwoman Weaver's point. I own 2 small businesses in Wheat Ridge. It used to be 3 small businesses. And one is construction, one is HVAC, and one is electrical. And as you can imagine, we have a lot of waste in what we do. And what we started doing as I sold the construction companies. Now I only have 2. What we started doing a very long time ago is measuring the amount of waste that we diverted from going to the trash by either A, recycling, or B, repurposing. So like repurposing carpet, cabinets, flooring, recycling old HVAC equipment, recycling and stripping wire. And what we did on our website is that we would measure that and then promote that on our website. So like that's a very low hanging fruit, which is something I think Councilwoman Weaver was kind of getting towards, is that if we added What's Up Wheat Ridge to like our program marketing, and we could put businesses on there that maybe they're not necessarily at the bronze, silver, or gold standard, but they're still doing the work to divert things from our landfills, then we could send that message on the on the What's Up Wheat Ridge. Like they could, you know, self-measure and proclaim that and put that on the What's Up Wheat Ridge, and then we can celebrate everybody. So maybe they're not at bronze, silver, or gold, but they're also working very hard, and these are the things that they're doing. And so I just wonder if that was something that you guys had considered as one of your pieces, or one of the parts of like the program marketing.
Take that one. Yes, that's a great point. We should have listed What's Up Wheat Ridge on there. I think I was in newsletter mode, but we could definitely make a page for the program on there, and there's a lot of interactive features that we could add. So we could definitely look to that to be the hub for just kind of information and recognition for businesses on that page. And then just maybe one more thing that I'd like to add about the recognition piece. We've also talked about trying to incorporate that more into the annual business awards each year. And so we could, either have something printed out or just spoken out of all the businesses who have participated and what level they're at, and just try and highlight them through that way as well. But for sure would want to utilize What's Up Wheat Ridge.
Great, thank you.
I don't think that we touched on for recognition. Once a business becomes part of the Green Business Network, there's a yearly recognition event. This past year, it was at the Denver Zoo, and it was a huge event, and the different levels got awards, and our team member that wasn't able to complete the program with us, she went to that and was just, thought it was amazing. So I think we forgot to mention that.
And as a participating member, all you would need to do would be to fill out the survey and start tracking your benchmark energy use and waste usage, and then you would be able to use basically the green sticker, which is the support level of the CGBN, as a part, and advertise that you are a participating member. You may not reach those recognition levels of bronze, silver, or gold that they'll give out awards for every year, but you'll be in the program with those first steps.
Whose hand did I see go up there? Councilor Snell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I would like to echo my sentiments about just thank you so much for taking this on. Thank you for volunteering your time. When you volunteer your time in your community, good things happen. So thank you so much for doing that. My question, I've got a lot of thoughts about this. I'm so happy this is happening. When you talk to some of the other communities that were already engaged in this program, did you get a sense of how long the startup took, how long before, things started to, pick up a little bit? And what did that look like?
So we spoke in depth with the director of the Yampa Valley Steamboat Springs program, and she was really that program was really in its first year of the application process, and so I believe that they were in the first year and they're still being piloted through some of the onboarding of the businesses. And so a lot of her time had been spent doing grant writing and letters to get additional resources, which they've done. So they were able to secure an additional grant from the USDA to, they're a nonprofit, so it's a little bit different. So they have other areas within sustainability. They prepared the climate action plan for Steamboat Springs, so that was one of their efforts. So this is a new effort. They're still trying to figure things out and how much staffing is going to be required, but they do have, I believe, 3 or 4 staff members that they can lean on during intensive periods. But she says her main, their main focus right now is to put together these outreach events and get businesses in, align them with experts and consultants and utilities, who can offer these rebates, and kind of getting everybody in the same room and matching resources and opportunities. So part of the USDA grant is going to allow them to continue to increase the number of outreach events they have, and they'll buy food, so it'll be like a lunch and learn. And all the while, admittedly, she says she's just drinking from the fire hose and learning a lot, on all areas of the program. So
we're gonna draw our conversation to a close now. A couple of things that I wanted to sort of say is, A, thank you for a great presentation. I think this is an exciting program. When I look at it, I look at my own business and what we're doing and what we might be able to do, and it would be interesting to me to do that. I think you probably will have a problem limiting it to the number of people. You know, if you go a year with just 2 people in the program, I think that will be a barrier to its success. I would say be a little bit more aggressive with that. I think we have a lot of entrepreneurs that would like to display what they do actually in a you know, an environmentally sensitive way. And so I think there'll be a lot of camaraderie and a lot of energy into that program. So, but I want to thank you very much for Councilor Dozeman has one more question.
I have a few more, actually.
Okay.
So I see that the citywide composting is listed on here, and I know that we had partnered with the Scraps organization. Can you kind of just give an update as to where we're at with that and how that program went, or if it's still in place?
Yes, so we are still partnering with Scraps to offer people 2 months free who sign up to use the drop-off locations that we have at City Hall. Well, it's been temporarily closed, but we're working on getting that back online, and then at the rec center. I am blanking on the exact numbers that we have enrolled, but I could get that to you. I think it's somewhere in the realm of about 115 people who have come through the program. So we are still offering that, and then we still partner with Scraps frequently. Well, not frequently, but we've offered our fall yard waste events and are planning to increase the frequency of those events. We have not really worked with Scraps in the sense of partnering up with other businesses, but I think that that is something, it seems like there's a desire from businesses to work on reducing their waste streams, and so it seems like that could be a really good partnership for us to branch out into.
Okay, and Melody, you had mentioned like that margin for businesses, and so can you talk about like tangible incentives that would maybe offset costs for businesses?
No, there it's on. Just from the limited amount of talking with our group was, we thought about, I don't know if this is what you're referring to, is that starting with the city assisting with the recycling and composting for the businesses, and also branding with the Green Business Network. You know, that could be something for, one of the businesses I talked to mentioned that their customers bring in their own to-go containers. So couldn't the city provide some of those? It's kind of like like we were talking about low-hanging fruit, like something that's branded that people would take to the restaurants with them. I don't know if that answers your question or not, if there was something else you wanted to add.
So there's the $1,000 scholarship or matching grant that is already available for small businesses to incorporate an approved project. And then there's additional funds that are available through the CDPHE as well. So that would be just an example of some incentives that right off the bat. And then there's some other incentives that people just may or may not know about through public utilities, Xcel, you know, government solar that are coming down the pipe in 2024. And so it's a big part of its education.
So as far as long-term goes then with either bringing on an intern or increasing staff, like what kind of costs are we looking at as far as the city goes? Because what I'm getting at is my concern is that we haven't had a robust amount of engagement, and I really appreciate the work on this, and I understand that, you know, partnering with the CGBN would allow us to have more engagement and to seek businesses that would be interested in this. I don't know that the costs necessarily outweigh the benefits at this point in time because of the margin that businesses are operating, you know, are so significantly narrow. And also if we're talking about increasing staff and looking at what that cost is. And so I'm just a little concerned as far as short-term and long-term, as far as cost effectiveness goes.
Yeah, and if I can jump in there. So we didn't price out a potential cost of an intern from the city's budget perspective, but the Colorado Green Business Network is contemplating and working on a grant right now where we could apply for funding for an intern. So I think if that were to come to fruition, that is what we would rely on as that first step. So my hope is that at least maybe the first piece with the intern wouldn't come at a cost to the city.
Okay. Thank you all very much for coming. We really appreciate your presentation.
All right, up next, we have our snow removal assistance program.
I think I know everybody here, but I'm Beth June. I'm the Events and Volunteer Coordinator for the City of Wheat Ridge Parks and Rec Department. I had the privilege to be one of the mentors with the Snow Buddy, Snow Busters, and also a different name, but I'll let them surprise you with that in their presentation. To say that this group is passionate about Wheat Ridge is an understatement. Sandra Davis, Bob Brazel, sorry. Pat Quinn and Clint Carlson. You guys were amazing to work with. Thank you for bringing all your skills to the table. Our meetings were awesome to be in. You guys are very involved with your community as it is now, and thank you for all your time. Also, thank you, Paige and Marianne. You guys have a very well-structured Wheat Ridge 102 program, and I can't wait to see what 102 will look like in 2025.
Yeah, just quickly, I'll echo that, supporting this group. I think meets a real need, so it really fits the purpose and intent of Wheat Ridge 102, of finding a niche in the community, a need, and really trying to fill that with local efforts. So with that, we'll turn it over. Thanks.
Well, thanks so much. Good evening, everybody. We're going to be presenting our findings on a snow removal program for the city. So we'll go into the background, some of the research that we've done, some prototyping that we've done, some research into other organizations and local neighbors that are doing something similar. Get into our suggestions on what we propose that the city take forward with this, and then that breaks down with a timeline, budget, and some more details. So let's jump in. It was working a second ago. I sat down and tested it.
We should be at slide 10 now, right?
I should have jammed all the way through, yeah.
Huh.
It is green, and it is not off, but I can do off and on.
Okay, now try. There we go.
All right, there's the blizzard blasting through. Thank goodness. All right, so a little background on the project. We were tasked to do some research into what it would look like to develop a volunteer program in Wheat Ridge to really enlist volunteers to help our community members who can't remove snow from their permanent residence So a core piece of this project was to ensure sustainability with as little impact on the city as possible. So we'll get into the details here, but the final description and plan, which we're going to propose right now, goes into resources, potential workflows, estimated costs, volunteer group partnerships, and external collaborations. So looking at the background, the problem that we've got, as winter approaches, we've got many elderly residents here in Wheat Ridge. In fact, 20% of Wheat Ridge is over the age of 65 and growing every day. So addressing this issue is not just a matter of convenience and getting people out of not shoveling your sidewalk tickets, but it's really a crucial step in ensuring our citizens' well-being. So a little look at the work we've completed. So we've done comprehensive documentation, including meeting notes, agendas, completed tasks. All this is linked in your blueprint document. But we've also put together a schematic workflow of how this would work, both on the volunteer side and those needing help side. We've put together mock-ups emphasizing one-click assistance for our community members who just need to tap one button and get help. contingency plans for those who are not tech savvy to hop into a new piece of software and get things going. We've looked into many successful other volunteer programs, both locally, nationally, and we've got a variety of information that we've gathered through surveys, highlighting the diverse need of this program across our city. So a little bit about our survey. We sent this out through a variety of networks, social media, and got a handful of responses back from our community. And what was great about it was that it was pretty widespread, that those who took the survey, it was almost an even split between those who were wanting to help and those who were needing to help. We also asked what district people were residing in to kind of see where the hot spot of need was, and we found that evenly split across the city as well. So there is a all-city need for this type of program. We've also reached out to Wheat Ridge City attorneys to look at what disclaimers would look like, anything that you would need to sign off on. And again, we've met with Arvada, Englewood, Lakewood, and also met with leadership at Senior Resource Center and leadership at a nonprofit across the state called A Little Help. So we'll first take a look at our in-house solutions that we were taking a look at. This begins with one of our friends and neighbors. So Englewood has a Snow Buddies program. So this is by Englewood for Englewood. It's a program for you to sign up for needing help, and it's a program for you to sign up as a volunteer. But it is strictly within the city of Englewood. In Arvada, very similar process going on over there. They've also got a Snow Buddies program in Arvada for Arvada. A little bit outside the wonderful city of Lincoln, Nebraska, has an incredible site also, where they're doing a Snow Buddy connection program with a dynamic map built into it also, which is a really interesting way of seeing quick at a snapshot, where are the needs within my city. So all of that is sitting in there. So really cool inspiration there. So we took all of that and we built out our own wireframes and mock-ups as to what this could potentially look like. So don't try to read all of this on the slide. It's in your blueprints, but we went through the entire process of what it would be like to be somebody who needs help. How do you make the first contact? How do you get enrolled into the program? How do I apply for this? And then on the other side, from a volunteer's perspective, how do we get a background check in place? How do we coordinate you with the people that need help? And we really looked at this phone app prototype for our people with need. So you'd enroll in the program, and the app would have a single button, the most basic app you can imagine. And you would tap that button, and then that would flag you into the system as somebody who needs help. So beyond that in-house, we also looked at partnership solutions. And one that really came up that was very interesting is A Little Help, which is a 501c3 nonprofit across the entire state of Colorado, connecting volunteers with those who need help. This includes snow shoveling, but also a wide variety of other pieces. A Little Help has 3,500 background check volunteers already in the system across the entire state of Colorado, but of course focused here on the Front Range. And they're helping 1,800 older adults through this program in a variety of ways. So it's not just snow shoveling, it's also transportation to run errands such as groceries, to provide connections for people who can't help people around their homes. So sometimes that's just a matter of going to someone's house and changing out a light bulb for them. Technology training, which is how I've known about A Little Help. I've been volunteering with them for a couple of years now, and I help people all over Colorado. So I go on site and help people in their homes. Sometimes that's just restarting a router or opening up an app that was hidden somewhere on their phone. Sometimes that's a phone call with somebody in Durango who just doesn't know how to get to a particular website, and we can help with that sort of thing. Transportation to healthcare visits, pet assistance, and so much more. I mean, A Little Help is really a communication hub to really connect seniors with all kinds of help all across the state of Colorado. This is a little bit what this looks like. The A Little Help website has similarities to what we saw with that Lincoln, Nebraska example with that live dynamic map. So on this map, if you were to go to A Little Help and if you were logged in as a volunteer, you would have access to this information. And you can look at the map and see where help is needed. You can filter it by the type of need you're able to provide, the type of help you're able to provide, and see real quick at a snapshot where things are located. So I've done this when I've done a little volunteering, is that I'll line up a couple. Like I've got 1, 2, 3, they're all in the same neighborhood, I'll go hit that on Tuesday. So it's really helpful to have these kinds of features built into an existing program. So our recommendation, while we've done a lot of data collection, a lot of brainstorming, a lot of schematic creating, a lot of wireframe mock-ups for apps, and done a lot of research and a lot of talking to people. And our suggestion is to not go with a home-built solution. We felt that this was a model that we were seeing in Englewood and Arvada that just doesn't work very well. The truth is that Wheat Ridge isn't an island with island problems. We're part of a larger community with larger community problems. So to be involved with this from a little help perspective, we believe makes more sense as a suggestion. So our suggestion is not to build this in-house, but to partner and collaborate closely with A Little Help, who's already doing what this group was tasked to find a solution for, plus so much more. So a little bit more about A Little Help. You can absolutely go to their website. They've got tons of information out there. The cost is on a pay-what-you-can model. So if you cannot afford to get A Little Help, I believe it's a couple $100s a year to get enrolled. If you can't afford that, no problem. If you can afford a little bit of that, no problem. If you can afford more than that, great. Thanks for the help. Background checks are a big hurdle that we were looking at, how we would handle that if we were doing this in-house, and they've already got this set up. So I've gone through that background check process. It's a detailed application that you need to fill in. One thing that they're looking at is not having such a strict background check if you're just volunteering outside of the home. So for me, I need an in-depth background check because I'm going into people's houses and interfacing with their technology. If somebody's just mowing a lawn or removing snow, they may not need that strict of a background check. But those mechanisms are there. Time commitment, they estimate that volunteers spend about 30 minutes per house and focus on sidewalks. Insurance, A Little Help carries liability insurance for this program, and all volunteers and adult members are protected by the Good Samaritan laws of the state of Colorado. So once again, that breakdown for A Little Help is membership, pay what you can, so we're not leaving anybody out. One thing that we were looking at when the in-house solution was how do we find sponsorships to be able to supplement those who can't afford A Little Help. But A Little Help has already built that model in. So you must be at least 55 years of age or older. You have to live in the state of Colorado. You must have a permanent residence, and your needs must fall within the scope that's also outlined in A Little Help. But it is generally, if you're over the age of 55, you can enroll in this program. And able to communicate. So one thing that we were looking at with that kind of home-built process was having that app to come into it. You don't even need an app for A Little Help. They have staff on hand where you can place a phone call and either talk to somebody directly or leave a message. Hey, this is the help I need, this is the time I'm available, and they will put you into the system for volunteers to find you. Beyond all of that, I've spoken with Jake at A Little Help, who's kind of our point person, and his contact information is in the blueprint for any follow-up. But they've also ensured that the pieces that we were losing from not building this in-house, we gain back. So we've got a promise for data collection. So at the end of each year, A Little Help will provide us the data to show us where our outstanding volunteers are, where the hot spots in our community were for volunteering. I mean, maybe in a year we look at this again and 90% of help is coming out of District 4. Well, maybe that helps us be a little more strategic in how we might be able to help. But we'll have that data to be able to make those kinds of decisions. And the community connection. Volunteering for A Little Help is more than just volunteering in people's homes. I get invited to meetups and happy hours and hangouts to meet like-minded people who are out there trying to help their community. So it is more than just a volunteer helper network. It really is a cool community going in there. Our timeline, one thing we wouldn't want to do is overburden the A Little Help with throwing in a whole bunch of help without providing A Little Help. So the suggested timeline would be, if the city wanted to move forward with this, we'd be looking at January as a broadcast call for volunteers and get some more helpers into the system before we follow up a month later with pushing people who need the help in there. So hopefully we're not taxing the system by just jumping in and going in so big, so quickly, so huge. And then by June 2024, we'll have sort of the data and analytics starting to come in. So we'll kind of be at that 6-month point where we could start looking at data and like, how do we want to organize and do stuff with this data? And then we can have that on a rolling basis. Our budget is absolutely minimal. It wasn't on the other suggestion where we were building apps and all these processes. But we've got a minimal budget. So our marketing and digital navigator, just to help people sign in, we scheduled as $500 a year. So pretty minimal. Sponsorship for those who cannot afford a little help is at $0 a year because that's built into the A Little Help model. And gifts to volunteer to celebrate volunteers. So we put in a $500 line item just to celebrate whoever put in the most time, whether that's a gift card or a upgraded shovel or whatever we deem. But beyond this budget, there's some interesting numbers on the people that we help. So A Little Help breaks down some numbers. They estimate that the people that are enrolled with A Little Help, who are getting A Little Help, save $12,700 a year per individual. And beyond that mighty impressive number, I think, is looking at if people were not being able to get a little help and were needed to move into a different program, like an assisted living or a nursing home facility, well, then you're looking at almost $100,000 a year. So our final conclusion is that snow removal assistance is not just a wanted program, but a necessary program for our community. Again, 20% of Wheat Ridge is over the age of 65. That number is even higher if we looked at A Little Help eligibility, which is 55. And those numbers are sure to keep growing. So, beyond communication to the service with citizens of Wheat Ridge, we recommend directly collaborating with A Little Help to best support the connection between volunteers and residents in need. And again, that direct contact with Jake over at A Little Help is in your blueprint, and I can help make that connection if that's useful also. But we believe that this suggestion results in more volunteers, more help, more opportunities, more connections, more Wheat Ridge community. And over to Pat for the thank yous.
Yes. I want to thank Clint for kind of taking the lead on the presentation. As you can tell, he's done this probably 10 minutes ago, I think, and that was it. He's very good at doing a lot of the formatting and framing of our program and was a really good team lead with us. Also want to thank Bob and Sandra. We had some very good debates, some very good discussions within our group, and we all still remained civil and didn't want to kill each other. So that kept the police doing what they need to be doing and not be hanging out with us at Wheat Ridge 102. However, we did feed them quite well, which I need to thank Marianne and Paige for their leadership in the program and bringing us lots of yummy food and then outlining this and giving us some really good direction. Want to thank Maria and Beth June because they nudged us in the right directions to get us to where we needed to go for some information to compile, so Clint could compile this all together and say, here we go, let's not do this. Let's have a little help do this. And as a matter of fact, on a strange side note, I was speaking to my mom about this, and she called A Little Help to come help rake some leaves out her yard. And the one day I was there, the Golden baseball team showed up, and in about 30 minutes did what it would took me all day to do. So it's a really good opportunity to get more of our community involved in helping each other, like the baseball team. I'm sure Boy Scouts and other organizations, they might be looking for a way to help within the community, and this is a good niche for them. And I just want to say thanks to our members for 102, and thanks to the council and the city for having this program. I think it's a great program and I'd like to see it continue. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
Okay.
One last thing that I'll include in there is that the part of doing this is part of a community, as part of Colorado, is that we get volunteers from all over the place, not just from within Wheat Ridge. I know when I go to that map and I look for places to help, I don't care where the border of Wheat Ridge and different cities are. I'm just out there to try to help. So there's really an opportunity to really build a larger volunteer network that's larger than just the city of Wheat Ridge for Wheat Ridge as well. Thanks, Pam. We can move on to any questions.
All right, thank you very much. And we do have a question. I'll start with Councilor Weaver.
All right, thank you. Great, awesome. I'm very excited. I have a couple questions. Would it be something where, as I'm sure the statistics will show, that Wheat Ridge uses the service like other communities would use the service, that, and I realize that individual people can become members, that Wheat Ridge may want to subsidize a certain number of memberships throughout the year. Is that kind of the idea? That's sort of more a question for our city manager, I guess, but.
Yeah, it was
Or for,
it was my thought when I saw, yeah, the budget, and it's something for council to consider, I think, in
Yeah,
the future,
yeah.
for sure, yeah.
okay, cool, cool. My second question was, a lot of I have not volunteered for this organization, but have volunteered for similar organizations. And sometimes they will also have, if you go into a situation where you realize that the person needs more than a little help, there's a system in place of getting that person the next umbrella of help. Does a little help also have that for if someone were to go into a situation and realize that it's much more than snow that they need removed?
I've been in exactly that situation where I've gone in to help somebody with a fixed phone and there was clearly a substance abuse problem going on in the building.
Yeah.
And my next direct step is to, after each A Little Help, I fill out a complete survey explaining what I did, how long it took, if there are any things to note. So I noted it in there, so it's part of that record, and then I also communicated it directly to who was Jake's position, the leadership in there. I don't think it happens very often, but they do have a mechanism involved. So.
And do they get people, and I wasn't even thinking something like that, but if someone were having true big mobility issues and just the ability to get other services involved.
Absolutely. I mean, they're a big network. If there's something that's outside of the bounds of what they can handle, they've got
But
resources.
someone takes
and
that, if you fill out that form, it doesn't get lost, in other words.
Absolutely.
Great.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I just also want to echo thank you to all four of you for this hard work, and to Beth and Maria as well. And I agree. I think it's funny. I imagine how the discussion went. Oh, it's not that hard to create a little program where you match up people, and then you start pulling little threads, and then all of a sudden you go, well, but if we do that, what about insurance? What about background checks? Yeah, I mean, the guilt you would have if you sent somebody to somebody else's house, right? So I think this is a great idea. I think going with an outside agency for this is good. And I just want to double check, there's no cost necessarily to the city to do this, just to implement
No
this?
cost at all.
Okay,
Yep.
so we could put the link on the website, you know, or whatever, and go forward with that.
When you contact A Little Help to become onboarded, they'll discuss finances with you, and they'll have a suggested amount for you to donate, to join it. But if you are unable to pay all of it or any of it, they absorb that.
Okay. Did you want to?
Now, Corey, one thing that I would suggest the city might do, we have the Wheat Ridge Connection that comes out once a month. That's, I think, published by the city. Now, if we put a blurb in there every month to make people aware of this program for all the, you know, and it doesn't have to be huge, just what all the Little Help does, and that you can volunteer, or how you can contact if you need help through the Wheat Ridge Connection, you know, get volunteers through the churches, the Boy Scouts, and all that kind of stuff. But I think that would be helpful, and I'll contact the Wheat Ridge Gazette, the guy there. He would probably put a blurb in there about this whole program too, and not cost us anything. But, you know, just those kind of promotional things.
Right, right.
If
Well,
it's going to succeed, we're going to have to promote it.
exactly, and then we need to get a nice pool of volunteers that want to help out with it, so we're not draining the resources from around us, right? So, but I think that's fantastic, and I would definitely support the city putting some money into the kitty for people in need, or you know, if we want to sponsor a certain level or something like that, I think that would be great. And this also solves, you know, we have a snow shovel problem, but we also have seniors wanting to get to doctor's appointments, all that sort of thing. I think my mom and my wife spend a good chunk of time driving people around to and from the pharmacy and things like that. So I think this would be a great definitely thing to implement. So thank you very much for your hard work. I think this is fantastic. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilor Hulteen.
Thank you, Mayor. And much like I think the last group, thank you guys so much for your time and passion. And as has been said many times tonight, great things happen in Wheat Ridge when community members get their heads together to figure out what's the problem and how to solve it. I think one of the things I really particularly like about your presentation and program ideas that's really centered on partnership. And you know, we have so many great organizations, both anchored within Wheat Ridge and that Wheat Ridge is adjacent to and part of. And so I love that you went through figuring out the app, but then at the end of the day, a lot of times it is our existing partnerships. And I know, I'm looking around the room at a lot of all you all, a lot of times our partners are really grateful for Wheat Ridge when we come to them with, here's how we want to partner with you, because Wheat Ridge is a great partner, because we bring a lot of value to things. So I just want to recognize that. I'm more ideas than questions on this one. I was thinking about it kind of at the higher level, and I think this works with the volunteer solicitation. Local Works has a party trailer coming online in 2024 for block parties, but I think creating a communications toolkit for block parties, because really that's a great opportunity for neighbors to be like, oh, I think I know a house that, you know, I think I know a neighbor who might really benefit from this, and I'm the neighbor who would like to help them. So I think block parties, if we can create some like just a toolkit or a little thing that can go with that party trailer, so neighbors can both be stepping up as volunteers, but also recognizing their neighbors in need who may not actually know about the program. And then absolutely, it's not something for like the people who are the best at it. Everybody gets a Snow Buddies hat. Like one of the bobble hats, like every Wheat Ridge volunteer who signs up for this program and does like 2 or more shovels gets a bobble hat, because I want, and they're going to be bright and noticeable, and I want us to like really like create an identity around when you drive around and you see someone in their bright orange bobble hat, like that is somebody who's volunteering to like shovel their neighbor's yards. So I'd love for us to do a high. Patrick's over there rolling his eyes at me, but I think it's really recognizing it and like making it visible, and something we're really proud of who we are. And I would love for all of our high school kids at some point to shovel somebody's walk, because when I was sick last year, I don't know who shoveled my walk most of the time, but I would wake up and my walk was shoveled, and it made a huge difference because I couldn't shovel it for most of the winter last year. And so this program means a lot to me, because I know firsthand how when neighbors step up when you need it, it like really helps a lot. So good project.
Thank you. Councilor Ohm.
Real quick,
Oh, go
Mr.
ahead,
Mayor.
if you'd like to, Pat.
We originally were going to call this the Snow Busters, and we're going to ask the city to buy us an old Chevrolet ambulance and deck it all out. And then Clint was coming up with some type of laser snow buster that we just, and the snow would be gone, but we figured there would be budgetary constraints with that, perhaps something with the military.
I'm just going to say there's a makerspace coming online here shortly, and some great things can come out of that. And there is a Ghostbusters car in my neighborhood that lives off in Yukon Court, and I see it driving around my neighborhood all the time. So maybe we could like just put a little bobble hat on that Ghostbusters. But I love your creativity.
Okay. Councilor Ohm.
Thank you, Mayor. First, thank you, everybody, for spending time, especially for the community. I know that I myself, I've tried to help my neighbors out, shovel their snow. And, when you continue to help people out, you start making friends. And over time, those friends become family. So it's really important for our community, that we all try to help each other out. And you guys put forth a lot of effort. I'm very supportive of this. Thank you.
Councilor Dozeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's really smart to outsource this and not have to reinvent the wheel, and all of the costs that would be associated with that. And it seems to go beyond just snow removal, but additional help for seniors. So I really appreciate that. My one thing is that we identified businesses that also are, problematic when it comes to snow removal. Are businesses allowed to register on this website? If
They are not. This
they-
is only
they're not.
for, I have to pull up the slide, but it is for people who own a private residence only.
Okay, so it's just for residences. Okay, thank you, appreciate that. And I just wanted to say thank you to all of the participants in Wheat Ridge 102 for dedicating your time, talent, and treasure, and coming to present to us. You guys have all done a wonderful job, and I know it can be challenging to be in the hot seat and have to present and speak publicly, so we thank you for all of that.
Thank you. Councilor Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I do really appreciate the amount of work. I mean, reading through this, you guys spent a lot of time on this, and I appreciate the honesty where you said recommend not going forward with a city program. The one question I have is, if we move forward with this, what sort of relationship would be with the nonprofit and the city? Would it be a contract or?
No, pretty minimal. I mean, our involvement from a city perspective would be advertising and getting the word out. I mean, it's pretty self-sufficiently run. That anybody anywhere in Colorado can join to get a little help, no matter what city or part of the state you live in, and anybody that wants to help can jump into that program and find people to help them. So there's no city commitment at all.
And not much more than a sponsorship?
If that, I mean, again, it's a pay what you can model. So I mean, this could run completely independent of the city. But with an important thing about this program, and volunteer programs in general, the problem is getting momentum and keeping momentum. And what is excellent about A Little Help is that, not to bring snowballs into this, but it's already a giant snowball going down the hill. Instead of us trying to build something small and nurture it and get it going. This has already proven successful all across the state, and just ready for us to say yes and do it.
Thank you.
And Councilman Larson, I think we were really wanting to not overpromise and underproduce. That was our big fear, and we really wanted to start off small, and then this came to fruition as this is already there. The wheel's already built. There's no sense trying to reinvent anything. We just jump aboard, help get some volunteers, and off we go.
It was definitely an ego check, I mean, we built out the app, we had a prototype going, and at the end of it, it was, you know what, Wheat Ridge isn't a monolith. We're part of a larger community and should behave that way. So, I mean, a lot of that work went into that prototyping and the schematics and the workflows, but had to do the right thing. Like, what's the proper thing to suggest for the city of Wheat Ridge to do? And this was it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It was a great presentation. Sounds like a really good program. I'm just hoping the big snowball doesn't come down and bust up the Bustermobile or whatever we're calling it.
If it does, we can always call a little help.
Well, you can call a little help and get it shoveled out, All right. Well, thank you all very much. We appreciate your work and the work in 102. So thanks so much.
All right, thanks, and don't forget graduation next Monday.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Okay. We're going to turn to agenda item number 2 on our agenda. This is the Community Advisory Group, and we've got Cole Heslip with us. Looks like the chief is going to sit in on this one, and Mr. Goff.
Yeah, I'll just turn it over. Cole's going to do a quick introduction, and then Chief's going to talk through the substance of this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. It's a pleasure to be with you here tonight. So I want to take us back to October 2nd, 2023, and that council meeting where staff presented a framework to regulate our uncodified special committees. During that discussion, the Community Advisory Group, which reports to the chief and at that time was a staff-selected committee, was reclassified as a hybrid committee, which would mean that 4 of its members would be selected by the council for district representation, and that the remaining members would be nominated by staff and ratified by the city council. Now, given that the chief was not present at that conversation, at that time, staff shared that we would return to council if we ran into any considerations that the council didn't have an opportunity to discuss at that time. So after that meeting, we met with Chief Murtha and Division Chief Lawrence, and we had a discussion about implementing council's decision. And we ran into some considerations that we thought were significant enough to bring back to council. So that's what we're here to discuss tonight, is those additional considerations. And with that being said, I'll turn it over to the chief.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I appreciate your willingness to indulge me for a sort of a second bite at the apple on this one here. First, I want to apologize for not being able to attend the meeting at which this was part of the discussion. I fully understand the purpose of what was the meeting was trying to get at. But I'm pretty passionate about the Community Advisory Group and what it offers to me, and I wanted to hopefully shed some light on it. So I apologize to staff for sort of having to try and take up the issue without me being there. It was a tough ask of them because they've never sat in, I think, on our Community Advisory Group. The Community Advisory Group was founded under Chief Brennan, and it was specifically named a group because it didn't really, in his mind or in most agencies' mind, fall into the province of being a board or advisory group. So I just want to talk about a little bit about, from my perspective, what this group offers to me and why it's unique in the way it's formed. What this group does do, this group affords me the ability to hear directly from members of the community without any expectations or influence. There's no agenda. Well, there is an agenda, but it's formed based on what the group wants to talk to, what anybody in the group wants to discuss. So it's a pretty wide open area to explore there. This does not administer the police department in any way. The CAG is generally more educated on police matters. We take time to educate them so that they can make informed decisions and really help me. And they continue to learn about our practices so they can provide counsel to me while understanding basically the why we do things the way we do. We discuss issues of importance that may not be ready for public release. While they may be publicly accessible, we generally don't talk about them in the public until we're ready to discuss it with the group. They maintain a direct line of communication with me as sort of my personal advisors. I don't have a good analogy, but I would say somebody like you would maybe count on when you're campaigning or something like that. So there's really a more personal connection there than a business connection. It's who can I call, who can I count on, who has some information on a matter of importance to the police department and can give me an outside look, that can tell me what the community is thinking and what their perspective is on it. So I appreciate that. The CAG has maintained a core group of members, which from my previous experience is more than unusual. Generally people come in and they think that there's some ability to do something that doesn't exist. And they may lose interest in the group, but we've had a tremendous interest in being part of this group, and I think it sort of speaks volumes for what the group can do and what they understand that their role is in our community. And I appreciate that again from them. They offer diverse opinions, thoughts, political leanings, and insights that provide for a more robust and cordial debate, quite frankly. It's never crossways and we never get sideways, but they're very open to expressing their opinions, and I appreciate that because I need to hear that. The CAG is empowered to screen members themselves to lead discussions. In other words, people will request to be part of it, but I really want this to be a grassroots organization from the ground up where the people decide and they look at other members. And I believe the diversity is there to not select the same types. They understand that the mission is to select a broad variety of folks. The broader the thought process, the more successful I can be, and the more successful I can be as a leader of the police department. So I don't know that I expressed that to Cole when he was trying to explain this. These are the individuals I communicate with directly, knowing they possess no agenda, and they only answer to themselves or their neighbors. Basically, it comes straight from, from farm to table, Ms. Weaver, if I can use that. So. What the CAG does not do is they don't set any policy. Our police policy is heavily rooted in best practices, legal requirements, legislative directives, CALEA standards, litigation, case law, and many other factors. There's little room for change within the police department policy, quite frankly. It's almost dictated to us. We have some very, small operating procedures that we can talk about, but it's really not the meat of the things people want to discuss. Our use of force policy, how we de-escalate. Those are best practices, and those are things that are litigated, and those are things that create liability issues, so we have to conform to a certain standard. Budget and other issues that may be part of council-appointed boards are not part of this group. And much of what we do is much of what we spend as far as the budget goes is mandated. And actually, people are the largest expense by far on the police department, and I can't do much about that. We sort of work at the market rate. So that's dictated to us, and there's very little discretion with the police department budget and other things that this group would have any input on. So they don't. They do not answer or feel or get pressure to respond to or report to any outside entities. They do not fill out reports or give formal presentation. The work is simply centered on the mission of providing unvarnished thoughts and feedback, specifically to me, as advisors to me. I understand that people may not always bring me information that's necessary and important in our decision-making process, but this group helps me to see the bigger picture from folks who live in our community, and that's what I appreciate about them. And this gives me the best opportunity to hear those issues of concern. There are issues that exist outside the police world, and we always need to stay ahead of them for the good of the community. I found this group of people who represent the community in a way that I am comfortable with, that provides the necessary information to help me make the informed decisions that hopefully continue to make this a safe community. I think that having the council appoint people and having them in the middle of it would certainly, based on some of the conversations I've had, cause some of them to leave and really completely change the dynamic of what this group is accomplishing now. I believe this group should be a staff-directed group of people, and that's originally how it was set up. It's how it's generally set up in some cities. If you talk about civilian oversights, those are definitely appointed or generally approved through council, but this is not that. This is something else. So I think I apologize my lack of communication to be able to explain this, and then leaving poor Lauren Mikulak to sit there and Cole to explain on our behalf was an issue that I take full responsibility for. But I hope that I've offered some clarity as to why I think this should really stand alone as a staff-selected position. So with that, happy to answer questions, but I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief. We'll open it to questions. Start with Councilor Weaver.
I am totally happy to support you that this not be a hybrid committee and be a staff-selected committee. So thank you for your presentation. We just didn't have that information at the time.
Thank you. Councilor Hulteen.
Thank you, Chief, for coming back and providing additional insight on this. I guess help me understand, like, what's the difference between how this group advises you, like, versus like Parks and Rec?
As far as
like compared to like the Parks and Recreation?
I really don't know how they're advised in Parks and Recreation, but this is a very much more informal group, I guess, is more informal than most are. They don't sit down, they're not answering to anybody else, and so it's a more, in my opinion, that direct line of communication is the difference, and the fact that they're not really on the record all the time, I think is what may separate this, but I'm not 100% sure what the Parks and Rec Advisory Board might do. I suspect that they comment on different park activities, on the way the parks are, expanding and some of the goals of the parks. That's not what this group does. They just offer me feedback. We each bring topics to the table. For example, I might bring up, how do you feel about our current state of public information? Is it transparent enough? Is it not transparent enough? What are you hearing in the community? And I might get feedback from some that say, they like what they hear, and others that might say, it feels like they're just promoting some of the criminal activities that happen in the neighborhood. And it allows me to go back and really calibrate sort of what are we doing with public information? Are we meeting, we want to have the goal of transparency, but are we putting any fear in the community that doesn't need to be there and doesn't really exist? So it enables me to kind of come back to that central point there when we get a little miscalibrated.
Okay, that's helpful. I guess the thing I'm trying to navigate is understand sort of, like, this is just such a unique committee or group, as you classify it, and like I don't even know who's on it. Is that kind of, so I'm just trying to think about, like, when we talk about getting involved in the community, like, how do we talk about this group and the role of this group, and like, I know you said, like, they're self-selecting, but like, how does the recruitment for it go? I'm just trying to fit it into, like, that fabric of how, like, we engage with our community through their volunteer time, because it just, like, I think the thing that's hard for me is it just feels super opaque. And I'm not questioning, like, the structure or the value of it. It's just that, like, I just don't understand it. And so I guess I'm just trying to understand a little bit better, like, how that's communicated and how the group recruits itself and how it kind of self-governs around that.
When we get our target is 8 to 12 members. It was originally 6, I think, when I first came here, but I wanted more than Chief Brennan wanted on there and more diversity. So you talk about opaque, and I would say in some respects it is opaque because they're shielded from having the scrutiny of, I have to answer to council, let's say, or come back and make a report to council. And I think these folks have told me, several times, we'd love to come to council and talk about X, Y, or Z. Often it's about, asking for more money, and I say, we've got it, that's not an issue, but I appreciate the support where they can, or some of the good things they hear about. But it's also that we talk about subjects that can be sensitive, can be law enforcement sensitive. So there's not, there's often times where we're discussing things that are not outside the bounds of what we could talk about publicly, but they're things that we really want to maintain sort of a close, sensitive relationship with people and have that level of trust that we can discuss these things, and we'll talk about them when we're ready, but we're not ready. We're just looking for feedback on what these issues are and what issues what fallout might come when we get to the point where we need to discuss this with the community. So let's talk about like speed cameras in the community, right? So that was considered years ago, and we hear a lot of traffic complaints. And so I'll go to this group and I'll say, hey, what do you think, what do you think the community would feel about having a speed trailer in the places where we're allowed to put it? Do you feel like that's a viable option? And getting that feedback from people and then saying, okay, this sounds like the community supports it or doesn't support it, so now we can bring it out. But we're just not there to scare people with the police department is going to have speed trailers. We want to do this through a thoughtful method, and this group helps to be thoughtful. So again, the relationship is more along the lines of, personal counsel. It's just a larger group of personal counsel is what it is. They make no decisions, they just offer insights, and that's really what this group is at its core. It's just a group that offers community insights. And so how they're selected, when we don't have the required number between 8 and 12, then we solicit for people. Generally, I go to Mary Ann or somebody who's working with community groups and has a diversity of opinions. She understands what we're looking for, and ask other folks, hey, do you know people in the community want to apply? They'll call me, I'll pre-screen them, and then I'll send them out to the members, or one of the members, and I'll say, can you interview this person and see if they understand what our goal is here, that it's just an advisory group that's just trying to advise the chief of police on what the right thing to do is. And those folks, will interview, and, generally, absent somebody who doesn't have their own agenda coming in there, will accept that person to the group. So that's how it works. And I'm sure they're happy to make a presentation to council and discuss what they want to do at any point in time. And I'm certainly not hiding the names of the people. It's just, this is kind of the way it's run in other places, and I think it's run that way because it just provides a direct line for the chief to have somebody in the community.
Okay, thanks. I guess my last comment, and again, none of this is a hill to die on, but, the concern I have about sort of that method and sort of the opacity of it is that I realize it is not a police oversight committee, which is very different, but I worry that type of sort of not as broadly, big broadcast that like this is an opportunity, apply, and on the website it's like that it's such a different way of getting involved, and it's like it seems like it's not as open to the public, so it seems a little bit less like genuinely open from what you're discussing. And I'm understanding what you're saying around like the nature of it is to dialogue and get the community's perspective so that you're able to then best direct and administer the police department, which we have an outstanding police department. It just feels a little bit like too opaque to me, and that just concerns me a little bit. Not in that I don't think it's not being managed well or not being of great service. It's just kind of, it just feels a little opaque to me for being like the way the community, like how does the community have confidence that the people who are being screened are representative of the community? Like there's no way for me to even know it. So I think just knowing like what are like, how are people selected, and that's kind of the questioning I'm bringing into it. So you're helping me understand like its service to you and why the suggestion of the hybrid, brought you back to help us understand this. But I still it just still feels a little bit too opaque to me for sort of where we're going in terms of like community engagement and transparency and stuff like that. So it's not a hill I'm going to die on. I'm just kind of registering. It feels a little opaque.
Yeah, I mean, I understand your point. I guess if I was to look at this in a different way, I would say, who are the 8 or 10 people I just count on in the community, right? I'm sure there are people that you speak to in the community that you think are pretty reliable and offer you good insights, and these are the folks I would. So if I didn't put a name on it and we didn't have, meetings here at the city and I just called them, you would probably not be having this discussion. We just have meetings at the city and we do it in a slightly more formal way. But I think everybody in this room has somebody they call to count on, and I have a group of, between 8 and 12 people that I do that with. So it sits in my mind in that place where I need somebody that I can speak to that gives me great information. If we just say, okay, we'll disband the group, I'll still call those 8 to 12 people. But to formalize a group really, quite frankly, doesn't do the thing I need it to do. If it has to go through council, if the people have to be scrutinized, if to kick somebody off has to go there, to bring somebody on has to, that would be a difficult hurdle to keep this thing going. And quite frankly, it probably wouldn't. And it would be difficult to sustain, and then have people who are maybe appointed or asked by council to attend this, and then have some of the members feel like, and this is what I've discussed, will they be there to, bring issues and ideas back to the council members such that it becomes interfering to us being able to just talk about our community in a way that we feel free to, because I don't want somebody to hear me say, something that's not perfect about Wheat Ridge, like we have this issue or that issue. So I think there's a lot of human dynamic in this, but if you looked at it from the perspective of who do you just count on for council and don't put a name on it, that's what this could be, but it's not. We named it. So
Okay, I think just the one recommendation I would make would just be to include it on our list of groups and committees, and for us to at least know who's on it, so that we, that we can see that it's representative of our community.
Sure. And
I think that would be helpful.
I would say that if the council was willing to entertain my thought process on this, I would suggest that I'm always open to hearing from any member who wants to nominate somebody. And I've really turned away only one person since I've been here, and that was because they had a very radical view of the police department. I didn't think that would be, it's not that I wouldn't want to hear that, it's just that it would have bogged down our discussions to the point where I couldn't get good counsel. It would be overtaken by a lot of back and forth. So that was the only time, but we have advertised it publicly. We do tell people when they are bring issues of concern about the police department that you can apply for this when it opens, and we have posted it on our social media sites when it was open the last time it was open for discussion. So I'm happy to post those names and be part of that. I just think it would change the dynamics, not to continue to allow me to run this in a way that offers me the counsel I need.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for being here, Chief. Appreciate the insight into your thought process on this, and I understand the need for discretion, I guess, when it comes to this sort of a group. So does this group meet as a group ever, or is it more individual conversations with you?
Yeah, we try and meet monthly, the second Tuesday or second Wednesday of each month, but we do take off for 2 months in the summer, and then we take off for December.
Okay.
So people schedule. And then I guess outside of that, I'll contact individuals in there for, hey, we have this developing situation. What's the community think?
Okay. Are there minutes or anything that go along with the meetings, or notes or anything that?
No, we don't take minutes or notes.
Okay, that's, I guess, understandable as well. Is there, and I don't remember, sorry, I apologize, is there a more publicly facing police advisory group, or do we have another, like, oversight group or something like that, or
No.
a committee? No. Okay, so this is the only, yeah, I mean, I guess that is maybe my only concern, is that we don't, and I mean that in that we don't have a group specifically looking at or working with the police officer, or working with the police department that is appointed by council, or you know, that everybody knows about, that there's a public face to it. Now, I understand, like, this group, if you're getting bad advice from this group and implementing bad policy, it's gonna show up pretty quickly, I guess, right? So this is a good group, I think, to check what you guys are already doing as far as your public outreach and things like that. So I understand, and I'm gonna support what you wanna do with this, as far as making it a staff selected group. I just would maybe like some idea, or a little bit more of an idea of either what's being discussed in the group, or maybe we look at maybe another board that maybe can be a little bit more publicly facing, maybe just a 3-person something or other that can be a little bit, or maybe, and I understand the sensitivity to it, but maybe having one person that's appointed by council or something in that group that can report back. I don't know, but I will support your suggestions. I just, maybe if there's a way to let us know a little bit more about what's going on with that group or something like that. Just doesn't, I guess, necessarily need to be formal, but just so that we understand a little bit more about it, because that's something, I guess, up until this process, most of us didn't really understand what it was. So, so I appreciate your time on this. So thank you.
Yeah, and before anybody else might have questions, maybe as a suggestion, what I would like to do is go back and maybe figure out if there's a way I can go back and suggest something that sort of satisfies opacity with counselors and with you, with you know, having the ability to have, you know, some more formal system of you know, informing the council with somebody in there or whatever that is. I'm not opposed to that. I just, you know, this is, to me, this is people who help support me stay in my job. You know, you need people who are going to be able to give you the good advisement that helps you make the right decisions, so you don't get off track from what the community is asking. But it sounds like there are other reservations, and I'd like the opportunity to address it. Maybe it's still semi-staff selected, but I think the idea of so many of the members being council selected takes it out of my hands. And if I lost the people who were there, it would be your board, it wouldn't be mine. And to say, hey, if you want a board, that's fine, but that's not what this group was doing. The board would be doing something else. And I'm really not sure what that would be, because as I laid out, so much of what we do is mandated and controlled. The police department, people think we make our own policies around pursuits. It's a regional pursuit policy, and it's really dictated by what our liability coverage determines. So, you know, you talk about response to resistance, formerly use of force. That is best practices throughout the nation. So all those policies that you see in the national media that are of concern, generally we've come to a place in policing where it is really not something that we hand to somebody else. It's something that somebody hands to us. We may tweak it a little bit, but not much. So I'm not sure what that board could do unless it was involved in something like discipline. We have such a low level of discipline, and, you know, quite frankly, I think our discipline policy is pretty strong. I think they might find themselves bored, which is what happens a lot of times.
I think, honestly, while you're speaking about that, I honestly agree with you quite a bit on that. I think from our perspective as a council, we have a responsibility to the public. So I mean, my first thought is, how much more public eyes can we get on any policy or anything that we do? But I certainly understand with law enforcement where you're coming from on that. So as I said, I will support your recommendations, because I do understand that this is different than the other boards and commissions that we're looking at. So, and I appreciate, you've been here 4 years?
February 10th will be 4 years, yes, sir.
Your policies you've implemented to this point have all been right on track with where the community needs to go. So there's a level of trust, I think, that we have as a council in you and the advisors that you've surrounded yourself with, because I think that it does show in the work that you guys are doing in the community. So thank you.
And just one comment on that. I think when you see the people who are on there, you're going to say, oh, I know these people. They're part of the community. I've met with a lot of them, and they're not just pro-police supporters that he's surrounded himself with.
Thank you. Time flies when you're having fun. Councilor Ohm.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm a big supporter of the police department, but I do have one question. Can you help me understand how this advisory group, which my assumption is it's a public advisory group, how it is exempt from the Colorado Sunshine Laws?
Let me work on that for you.
And maybe it's
when we come back.
semantics, but just, yeah, if you could just clarify that.
Yeah, I believe I believe Chief Brennan addressed this when he started this, and I need to go back and look at that again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Dozman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question and then a few comments. So does this advisory group primarily, is it primarily made up of residents of Wheat Ridge?
Yes.
Okay. And then I will echo some of the comments that have been made. I completely understand the sentiments, and I really appreciate you coming and providing broader insight into it, and having trusted advisors. I think that's really important, especially as to what you do on a daily basis into keeping us safe. I do have some concerns as far as, the advisory group is to promote and encourage and continue this philosophy of relationship-based policing, which I see as a two-way street between the police department and the community. And so the exclusivity of it, or at least the perception of the exclusivity of it, I think could come into question. This is an advisory group that I would really like to be a part of after I'm off council, by the way. So I'll just, say that, because I think it's a much needed group in our community, and I think some of what I believe is the most important in the relationship-based policing is transparency. And so this kind of lacks that. And, doing a quick search on the website, you can see that there's an application that you can submit, but it's just not run in any manner like our other boards and committees. And so you coming back and kind of talking, to Councilor Ohm's question, and then also Mayor Pro Tem Stites, as far as either a more formal board or transparency in who is on this board. And I don't know if that's, within your comfortability as far as releasing that information, or if you want to be discreet in that as well. But I understand where everyone's coming from and why we moved this to a hybrid. And I think Councilmember Hulteen and I were the biggest proponents of that. And so I want to ensure that we're maintaining the intent of an advisory group of this nature, and having it be an inclusive process, application process, selection process, and that it's representative of our city.
Yeah, I understand, where you're coming from on that. Like I said, I think maybe there's a inflection point where I can come back and address the concerns in a way now that I've heard the feedback that might suggest more opportunities to be transparent with. And certainly, I don't think anybody on the group would want to remain anonymous. I think they're all okay if we posted them on the police website. So these are the list of our community advisory group members. If you want to talk to them instead of the police, you can give them your feedback. If we were able to, satisfy some of the, again, the opacity and potentially, we could put what topics we're discussing or that sort of thing maybe. There are probably some options we can discuss to try and make it, meet your needs, but also stay within the framework that I suggest is necessary to be true advisors.
Thank you. Councilor Snell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just really quickly, I'd like to echo my fellow councilors' thoughts on just a little bit more clarity. One of the concerns that I had that you did answer or address is just diversity in this group and diverse opinions and, getting a good sample of everyone. So I think moving to a staff appointed model is a good first step in that. And I know that you mentioned that right off the bat, that that's a concern of yours as well, and you take that into consideration. So certainly, again, not anything bad or, a knock or anything like that. It's more of just continuing that and having that as a top concern. So I will be supporting that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilor Weaver.
Thank you. I want to make sure that we are honoring the sunshine laws. I also think that this group is very, very different than the other public groups that we have. And I want to honor what the chief has been trying to say. I'm hearing that this is more of a focus group, that's what I would call it. And often focus groups are anonymous. Now I realize they can't be in this situation, but we have hired our chief of police to do a very specific job that none of us are expert in. And so I want us to be really careful about, because I want things to be transparent. And I've actually known about this committee because we had a community member a couple of years ago that I think I engaged with you about it. And so I do feel like the information is out there. To your point, I want to make sure that we are lawfully doing that. But I hear that the chief is asking for something very specific that is not council-driven, and we drive the other groups that we've been talking about. And so, whereas I think that the transparency can be addressed by a lot of the conversations that have been said, I think it should stand out as a separate group and not try and conform to what these other groups do, but it's called out as called a focus group or something, because I think the chief has clearly identified they are not policy driven, they are not an advisory group. Well, they're what am I trying to say? There was a word about police oversight. It's not a police oversight group, and I think people generally are very confused about what those things do. And so I think it's important that we do call out how this group is different from our traditional methods that we reach out. Because I also worry that a group like this, if it's considered like the cultural committee, where people are encouraged to reach out to your person on cultural committee, how will that then change the focus group if neighbors are calling all of the people? So I'm okay with us knowing who's on that committee. I'm not sure that is something that we should necessarily post out on our website. And I don't have the answer to that question, and I'm not going to propose an opinion, but I am asking the question. I hear that this is a very different group and serves a purpose because it's a different group, and I'd like us to honor that.
Okay, we're going to take a break here in a minute. I've got Stites and Hulteen. Mayor Pro Tem Stites.
I was going to take a consensus, so if she's got one, go ahead.
I guess I just wanted to respond a little bit to Councilmember Weaver. So just for clarity, I'm okay with this not being something council's got its fingers in. Like, I really respect that in terms of what your needs are around having access to community members and as Councilmember Dozman said, like, these really important conversations. My biggest concern is just like the perception from our community of what is this group and what's it doing. And I think the fact that it has the name advisory in it is like I think one of the things I trip up a little bit, in that I'm sitting in the room, I've read the memo, I've listened to you, and it actually all sounds really healthy and good. And like everyone said, you are running a phenomenal police department. I'm so proud of who we are as a community. And my only concern is just how might this be perceived, like if something were to go horribly, like if there were to be an incident, and would this be something that community members might, like, someone might really focus in and be like, question an outcome and what's talked about in this room, right? That's my concern, is like, is this a liability of the perception of some of the things? So maybe it's as simple as like renaming it like the Community Insight Group or something. It's just, I think the fact that it's called an advisory group, and I don't think members of it want the members of the community contacting them, but again, just for the community to know if it is representative and diverse representation of our community, for us to be able to see that it's that. We don't have to have insight to the conversations. Those people don't have to have their email addresses or phone numbers listed. But I think that's my concern, is in that space around like the perception and the liability. Like, should there be something that really puts the police department under scrutiny? I just want to make sure that like the way this is being conducted has clarity of purpose and isn't creating any confusion. So perhaps we call it the community insight group to avoid, like, to get rid of the advisory confusion.
I didn't name it, but I'm open to all the suggestions. And put those in the machine, and we'll, if you're inclined to support this tonight, I'll take all these suggestions, and at some point I'll come back and tell you what changes we've made to really try and meet your needs at least halfway, so we can do both.
Councilor Ohm?
I would be in support of this if we could just get Attorney Dahl's opinion, some wording. Thank you.
Staff is seeking consensus for the City Council to revise its classification of the Community Advisory Group from a hybrid committee to a staff-selected committee. Do we have consensus to do that? We do. Chief, thank you very much for your report.
Thank you.
We're going to take about a 7-minute break right now.
For your indulgence for a little. 3. This is an overview of the city's snow and ice control policies and related efforts. We're happy to have Maria DeAndrea here and guests.
Yep.
Mr. Goff?
Yeah, well, we'll turn it over to Maria to get it going.
Okay.
Great, we'll jump right into it. In the interest of time, we're going to touch on just two things. One being our new Plow Ops application that's on the city's website. We'll do a little bit of a preview for that. And then jump into the discussion so that we can get some input from council on our enforcement policies, how we want to address sidewalks potentially for additional clearing as well as bike lanes. But I'd like to introduce two of our public works staff first. If you're have not met them before. First is Bill Toko, who's our fleet supervisor. He's been instrumental in helping us with the Plow Ops application, getting that up and running, because it does take a sensor on each of the plow vehicles that feeds back into the system that actually reads and shows where the vehicles are. He also has been involved in a lot of the maintenance, obviously, of the vehicles, the plow vehicles, keeping them up and on the road as we go through the winter. Also looking at different technologies, specifically like different types of plow blades that we're looking at this year. We might be trying something like that. And just generally keeping our fleet in order. And then Jim Kelly, who's our operations supervisor. He's been with the city for over 37 years and has just a tremendous wealth of knowledge in this area, specifically with the city as well as plow operations in general. So we can't rely on a better source than Jim for his expertise as well as how we address different storms. So with that, we'll give you time at the end to ask any questions about kind of some of the changes to our policy, but I'm going to go ahead and jump into the Plow Ops. I'll look at that on the screen, and then Bill can talk you through the details. So what we're showing here, so you can get to this, so this is this application is now on the city's website. There is a link there underneath city services, and it's through the street maintenance. Sure. Thanks, Marianne. There we go. So now everybody can see it. So what you see up here, though, this is we're coming in on the back end. That's staff is able to review our routes and see, and we'll show here in a minute, and we'll start this actually. This is what we're able to see. So this, we did plow yesterday for a while, and so what we've done is use this technology. This is a program that was developed locally here. It has won a national award through the American Public Works Association. The company is called Neotrex, but the application is called Plow Ops. And what you'll see here is just an interface of where both staff and the public is able to see where our plows are. So we have digitized our routes. We have broken, our current routes are based on a west, central, and east program for our priority 1, 2s, and 3 streets. So you see here, just as an example, one of our plow operators was working yesterday. That thick red line is following his path. We are already planning for some modifications. We think this line is a little bit too thick, so you really have to dig into it and get down in here to see that. But it's kind of fun to watch, see the progress that's being made, and some of the benefits, as you can imagine, is that if he happens to miss a spot, as we get further down into the route here, there's some of these priority 3s, there's some cul-de-sacs, so you can imagine, in the scheme of things, you might miss one of those or forget to go down a particular street. This shows us very clearly whether we are able to hit that or not, or if we've missed anything. You can also see here with the little marks that they're going to go back and forth, and then we also have the ability to click on this at any given time, and it will call up at that particular moment how fast they're going, their heading, their location, whether the plow is up or down. And so we can respond to specific inquiries from citizens about, oh, you were going 50 miles 50 miles per hour down my street. In reality, we were actually going 30, and that we were there at a particular time. If we dig in a little bit closer, you can actually see that those are two separate routes going back and forth. So again, this is a work in progress. We're continuing to make strides. Where'd it go? And then, Bill, do you want to touch on anything else?
Sure, yeah. First off, so inside each vehicle, there is a tablet that the plow drivers will log into. They do their pre-trip and post-trip inspections on it. Also, while the tablet is in the vehicle, it shows them their routes that they're taking. This is one of the pre-trips that the driver filled out right here. And these are all the questions that he answers, whether the vehicle make sure it's in working order and everything. And then he signs it. And this is, meets CDOT regulations for that. So it's an electronic logbook. Also in the vehicles, along with the tablet, there's a small AVL computer that's mounted underneath the dash, and the wiring's ran, and there's also a sensor on the plow. As you can see on the left-hand side, it does say distance plowed only 11 miles. We are having some issues with these new sensors, so we're working on that right now. I think they're a little slow to respond on if a driver lifts and drops a plow fairly quickly. I did speak to this driver today about it, and he was running across some black asphalt and then into snowy patches and just raising and lowering the plow. So we have some bugs to iron out here.
And so again, so this is what we're able to see, some of this data on the backside, looking at routes after the fact, seeing that things are covered. We can also, within this, go back and look at, let's see, where is that? Where do I find the, where we can put the potholes again?
Oh, we'll go back to live map.
Okay.
And then go to observations.
Observations, yeah. So we're able to put in so that each of the drivers knows in this particular location, this is a speed bump. So as you can imagine, in a big plow, you don't want to hit those. So imagine they're seeing this, they've got an iPad in their truck, it's up on display, and as they're driving down the street, they can see this. We've also put in locations of our traffic calming devices, just to know that that's a little bit of a narrower location, possibly where the curbs come out. And then we're also able, in real time, here's an example here, where we're able to drop, one of the drivers can drop a pin to put in a potential pothole location so that we can come back after the fact and address those. So right in the moment, they're able to note that in their application and then be able to communicate that out as a group once we get back. We are able to send them messages during the storm event. They have to pull over before they can actually respond, but it does come up on their screen so that if Jim wants to put out a particular message to the group or to a particular driver, he's able to do that. So again, we're working on all of the routes and trying to just get that in a better format for the public to see. From the live map, you are able to type in your address and then also go back and see. Here's the address lookup, so we can find a, let's see here, it may take me a while. 44th Ave. I thought this one was working earlier. Might be a little slow, but you can type in your address here and then actually see when the plows have come by most recently and see, even for previous storms, where they were located. Any
Maria,
questions about that?
If you want to go to setup.
Okay.
And then public portal. About 3/4 of the way down, yeah. And then if you can scroll over, so I was just trying to show them a, it's over to your right. Okay, there you go. Mm-hmm. So this is what is on the website currently right now. And that is a truck that I drove today, test driving it, and I did take the tablet out to check it to see if the plow up, plow down was working correctly. And so that shows, well, where it says 1 hour, 1 to 2 hours, 2 to 3 down at the bottom. Underneath it, there's a scale. If it's under 1 hour, it's green. Over 12 hours, it turns to red. So there's a gradient in there between them. You just can't see it because you are screen sharing.
It's under an hour, what? It's not gonna be there an hour?
No, that means it's been plowed within the hour.
Within an hour, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
So something that we're able to use, as a tool within the department, as well as to the public, just to communicate more effectively. So we'll go back here. Yeah. So then we'd like to talk a little bit. As you know, we had a relatively low total storm event or storm season last year, but a couple of fairly big ones, especially one big one that almost, I think we got about 12 inches. And so I think that came up, and then we continued, because it was probably in the coldest part of the season, we continued to accumulate snow on top of that, and started to receive a lot of phone calls from people about that continuous situation where we have people throwing their snow back into the street, us plowing it back onto the sidewalk, and that eternal chicken and egg problem of how we solve that. So we wanted to bring this back to council to talk a little bit more about what the possibilities are in terms of ways that we could address that. And if there's a desire from the council to put more resources towards that, or possibly reallocate resources of what we're doing now internally, both between the Public Works and the Parks Department, or use those in a different manner. Similarly, we'd also like to talk about, enforcement. So I think at the direction of council, the CSOs have taken, more of a reactive response. They are not aggressively going out and ticketing people, knowing, as we just talked about with the snow, the Give a Little Help program, that there's a lot of seniors, there's a lot of maybe people with disabilities who just aren't physically able to get out and clear their sidewalks. And yet it works as a system or a network. If everybody on the street plows or clears their sidewalk and one doesn't, then it creates an impasse for anybody trying to use that alternate transportation system to get around. So it really does impact a wider variety of people. So with that, I'll just open that up for discussion.
Great. Questions, comments? Councilor Weaver.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Very excited about the Snow Ops program. I sort of want you to put that online, but I realize that would probably be a nightmare for you all. Other than it would be fun to know where the plow is. Sorry, I'm a GIS person, so that's.
It is online.
Yeah. So you'll be able to watch it?
Oh, I'll be able to watch the plow. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I do feel like we should just clap for you as well, because I live off of 38th, and it just makes me happy when it's snowing and I hear that plow go by, so.
We are working, right now, you'll see it live, like literally, you'll be able to see it go across, you'll watch
I'll have it open on my phone,
Yeah, and you'll see
I'll
them
be
go by.
looking out my window. That's awesome.
We're just gonna put that on probably like a 30-minute delay,
And then
just to
somebody's
provide
gonna come
some security
record
for the
me
drivers.
being so excited, looking at my phone and seeing the. Okay, all of that is great. I really just wanted to address the snow and the CSO issues. Because I think it's more than snow. What I'm hearing from constituents is that and this comes back to the sidewalk issue, right? Some people have sidewalks, some people don't. The people who have sidewalks have to shovel them. The people that don't have nothing to shovel. And then those people who have sidewalks and have shoveled them are then walking through their neighbors' yards who don't have sidewalks because they say it's too unsafe to be in the street, all which I agree with and totally understand. But I think there's a larger issue between sidewalks, snow, and whose property right is it? Because I've heard from several neighbors coming up and saying, well, they should have a sidewalk right away across their property so I can walk there. And I say, oh, I don't know if that's right. I think if there's not a sidewalk, you can't, so I don't have the answer. And then it snows, and then there's this whole issue, and it all has to do with people having to walk in the street. So I don't know the answer to any of that, but I would love I think that the CSOs are gonna get more than the snow issues around shoveling. I think it's gonna go into these other access issues. And I think we have to talk about all those things.
Okay.
I am for at least notifying people, because right now people don't really understand, I think, that what they have to shovel, when they have to shovel, what their responsibility is. And like, I don't have a sidewalk outside. I would love to go shovel a sidewalk outside my place on 38th Avenue. And when there is a sidewalk, I will be out there with my hat that Rachel's gonna make sure I have. But this issue of fairness, which I realize is kind of ridiculous, but when there's 12 inches of snow, of course, that issue becomes a big one. So I'd love to hear my other counselors' thoughts on what's appropriate. But I do think we'd have to let people know what the rules are. Thanks, and thank you for all this cool stuff.
Councilor Hulteen.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Maria and staff for being here tonight. Okay, so I've got thoughts on this. I'm going to start just on the shoveling enforcement. A little bit to what Councilor Weaver was just saying. We just have such an inconsistent network. I'm going to really loosely use the term network of sidewalks in our neighborhoods. And as we talked about earlier tonight, we have a lot of neighbors that are just unable to shovel their walks. And so I think, I don't depend on a sidewalk being available to me while I'm walking in the neighborhoods, whether it's snowed or not, just because we don't have a lot of them. So I really feel like enforcing that in the neighborhoods is kind of it just seems like a uphill battle. But where I do care about it is on our primary corridors that have been identified in the exhibit in our bike ped master plan, which I cannot find our bike ped master plan on our website right now. It's a dead link, our bike ped master plan. But I mean, we have primary corridors where people are depending on safe pedestrian access to get to transit, to schools, services, and so what one of my just things that really kind of actually upsets me is when I know we have the ongoing battle with the street snow plows and people with their sidewalk, and that is almost a no-win situation. But what's 100% winnable and 100% avoidable are the commercial properties who hire plows to come in, and then they create 6-foot drifts in the middle of our public right-of-way. And that we should be strongly enforcing, because what happens is those plowed piles in our right-of-way take weeks when we have a big storm. And as they get compacted ice, then they're increasingly difficult to remove. So I think enforcement on our commercial corridors, and especially when we see commercial properties who've had plow that have cleared the parking spot but have actually created an obstruction in the public right-of-way. I do like the idea of notices of warning on our primary pedestrian corridors that have been identified, to let people know, and then maybe looking at that data. How much noncompliance are we seeing? Are there patterns of it that might then make sense for more strategic either outreach or enforcement? So maybe doing a little bit of warning data, and then looking at, is there something more programmatic? I think into the city's obligations, programmatic, opt-ins for clearing things, we have picked up a couple of pieces that we clear that are kind of orphaned. And in particular, I'm thinking along 44th Avenue, where we have a lot of fences where, while it's private property, it backs to this like quasi-public space.
Yep.
And so the city has taken on a couple of orphan places like that. I think if I were to look at a policy, what makes a lot of sense to me is we have several of these multi-use trails that are functioning as passageways for, you know, people walking and biking. And we've deliberately designed them because they're alongside our arterials where it's not safe to be doing, you know, or overly like costly to put on-street bike facilities. So in particular, like the Kipling Street multi-use trail, what we're building on Wadsworth right now, we have it, I ride it to come to council along 32nd into Wadsworth. So I think anytime we've got a multi-use path that is of a certain width, and I would look to Public Works to maybe figure out what's that width delineation between a multi-use trail and a sidewalk. But when we're requiring, or in some cases seeking out federal funding to build these multi-use trails as transportation corridors, then I think we should be maintaining them with snow removal policies that are consistent with our roads. But then also, and I've talked with you about this, Maria, when I ride on Wadsworth, it is so covered with debris that it's actually like unsafe because the debris, like my bike will skid out on the debris. So not just snow maintenance, but actually recognizing that periodic, like, you know, not doesn't have to be hugely frequent, but like recognizing that we're treating that like a transportation corridor. So, so I would look for some guidance on a multi-use trail width and getting an analysis of how many linear miles of that we have and what does maintaining those look like. Focusing on our principal pedestrian corridors that have been adopted in our bike ped master plan for warnings, looking at data, like do we have specific problematic areas, and then just being like really ruthless, unrelenting with those commercial property owners who create snow drifts in the middle of our sidewalks. So those are my thoughts. And I think the bike lanes in general, we should be maintaining. We don't have any protected, vertically separated bike lanes yet in the city. So maintenance of them isn't as problematic as it will be once we get some vertically separated bike lanes in the city
Well,
at some
there
point.
is some maintenance issues there, which maybe Maria could address on the bike lanes, but we do maintain the multi-use pass. The one on Kipling, Parks and Rec does that. The one on 32nd that goes from Wadsworth down to Crown Hill Park, we do that. But we'll check, make sure if there's any other multi-use pass that
So so New Wadsworth.
New Wadsworth, Clear
New
Creek,
Wadsworth.
obviously.
Clear Creek,
Yeah.
yeah, New Wadsworth will be more work for sure for our staff. Yeah, there's a whole list. We didn't provide it in your memo, but there's a whole map of all the areas that Parks and Rec also picks up, including some of those orphan areas that you mentioned that we've gained over the years.
Another orphan area, just to call out, is Kipling, south of 32nd on the west side. If you look at the condition of the sidewalk there, it has so much debris. It's not a multi-use trail, but it's a narrow sidewalk. It's adjacent to the right-of-way, to the road. And it gets on the west side, and it gets snow pileup and debris, and it is, and nobody there treats it like it's their sidewalk. So I think because it's on Kipling. Anyway, so those are my thoughts on that, and would love to hear more about the bike maintenance issues, but thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I love the map. It reminds me of like Indiana Jones, where they're flying and you can watch them going. It's pretty cool. We should probably do that with all of our city vehicles. That would be kind of, I don't know if we want our public to have that, but that would be kind of cool. As far as the snow removal, I agree. I think it's a uphill losing battle to try to do this in the neighborhoods. I think that most of the time people can walk on the sidewalks, and you're really penalizing people who have sidewalks, I guess, versus people who don't. So I wouldn't mess too much with the neighborhoods, but I do agree with Councilor Hulteen on the corridors. And I've never understood why businesses do this, why they would pile up snow on their sidewalks or not plow or whatever, because you need to clear that for your customers to get in to come see you. Kind of a weird, but you know, we do have those business owners or those plow companies that come in and plow the entire parking lot out into the right of way or up onto the sidewalks. And I definitely think that maybe a one strike, you know, one warning and then you're out type of you get the citation after that type of policy is where we need to go, or maybe even a 3 strikes. But it's definitely something that needs to be addressed because we're seeing it and we've seen it for years and years. And I think one of the first things we did about 4 years ago after I was elected was put in a new snow shoveling policy that you had 24 hours after, I think it was an inch that fell, and it's definitely not something that is being enforced. So we have the policy. I just think that we need to actually enforce it, especially on those main corridors. And as we look at places, and the other place I think about, and I think Patrick didn't mention it, but like 32nd and Kipling, where that sidewalk is on the east side, where there's no actual houses that front to it, but going down the hill there. That's another one of those orphan places that nobody claims, but is definitely a sidewalk that needs to be plowed. And as we look at 38th Avenue, as that's built out over the next few years in front of Councilor Weaver's house and all the way down, there's some houses that front to that, and we'll have a sidewalk in front of them, and probably maybe even a multi-use trail at that point. So that's something that we need to look at too, is do we have enough resources as we put sidewalks in and all that stuff down that street. And, you know, as 2J passed, you know, we're ideally going to be putting in a lot of sidewalks down corridors. So that's something that if we need to put more resources into, that's something we need to look at. But I would definitely support more enforcement on the corridors and following some of those programs that we have in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Dozeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Love the interactive map that's available to the public. Really appreciate that. And I also really want to commend our Public Works team. I receive so many compliments from our community about how well we plow our streets. And there is a noticeable difference between when you cross over into Lakewood or Arvada. So you guys are really on top of it, and I really appreciate that. And I just wanted to kind of touch on the partnership as far as Kipling and Wadsworth goes, because I see that that's kind of a lower priority since it's technically CDOT's responsibility, but I think because we do a much better job at maintaining them, that I'd prefer it be our responsibility. And so can you just kind of speak to that? And then I have a couple other comments.
Sure, yeah, they'd love that. Well, and I think I've experienced this in other cities too, where they're focused on the interstates. You know, let's be honest. And so while that is a CDOT road, it acts and feels like more like a local road, or more of a arterial, if you will. And so it becomes a lower priority for CDOT, and as we're experiencing similar to them, they're having a hard time finding staff, hiring staff, and getting adequate staff to take care of all their facilities. So it naturally falls to the bottom or lower on the list than some of their other priorities. So then we end up either through PD or just out of necessity going out there and actually plowing it ourselves. So I think we could explore that. I think then it becomes a matter, again, of more vehicles, more resources, more people in order to be able to do that on a consistent basis.
Yeah, so I've lived off of Kipling or close to Kipling for most of my life, and that is on my daily commute. So I really appreciate when you plow that because it can get pretty treacherous. And as far as enforcement goes, I agree with the council members that have spoken before me, in that I think the priority should be the primary corridors, and it's one of those, we're stuck between a rock and a hard place as far as, you know, when people shovel and then it gets plowed back onto the sidewalks. And living along 44th Avenue, that's just something that we see on a regular basis. And so I think maybe a little help program might kind of help us with that, or, you know, just kind of leaning on our neighbors and seeing if they can help clear those primary sidewalks. And I really appreciate you coming and discussing this, because I know that it's kind of an ongoing, revolving discussion. We tend to have it every year, but I think that you guys are just doing a phenomenal job, so I wanted to give you that kudos.
Thank you. Councilor Ohm.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Director DeAndrea. Snow, I've lived with it all my life. Colorado, I've lived in a lot of different areas over the years, and Colorado is one of those unique places because, you know, we can get an inch of snow one day and we can get a foot the next, and then it's 70 degrees outside, and so you never know what's going to happen. And we're making some progress. You know, just a couple years ago, we did get the shoveling the sidewalk, which I was a little surprised that it took that long to put in place, and there were some caveats. Right now, I even have a PDF from last year from the EDATS talking about a similar situation. It was about somebody along the south side of 38th. You know, I don't know, maybe it was shady, and there's so much snow, they were forced out in the street. I saw that last year, you know, on 38th, and people are walking along the 38th, and I was pretty upset by it. And I contacted Patrick, had some conversations with Dahl. It's like, who's liable if this person gets hit? Is it the cities? Is it the property owners? I would really, you know, implore and support that we definitely designate and put as much emphasis on sidewalks as we do the streets. And so, you know, if we want to just say, like, you know what, the same priority that we have for streets is the same priority we have for sidewalks. And I think we all understand there's a lot of issues with 38th. I get it. There's fences. There's nowhere to put the snow. And so we move it left, move it right. It's not right. When I lived in a different state, they've been doing it for a long, long time, since dawn of snow. And what they would do is they didn't have anywhere to put it, which like in a business district. So all the snow would get shoved into the middle center lane temporarily. You know, it's an extra cost, but then there wasn't this back and forth, back and forth. You put everything in the center, and then that was like phase one, and then the next phase would be the, whatever you want to call it, the giant snow blower would come, and it would blow that snow like a big snow blower into the truck behind it, and then that would have to get hauled off. And so it's you know, it's a different tool, but at least it's like that snow, you just had to, because it snowed so much, and it was a different state further up north, and it wouldn't melt, and so that's what you had to do. I would be in favor of that, because even if we just, you know, use the heavy stick and said, well, anybody along 38th, you know, we're going to take it if you don't put your snow. I see some people out there, and there's nowhere to put the snow. They're going to have to bucket it or something somewhere else. There's no place for it. And I think we just, you know, we live in a civilized society, and this is something that we may just have to consider. I do think that other than those priority streets, you know, do we all want to be pleased all the time? No, but I do feel that, you know, there should be something, there's a little bit of fuzziness with the, you know, the 24 hours, and you know what, it's standard everywhere. And I've lived in another city up north in Colorado, and I learned and I've said this before, I learned very quickly that I was up in Fort Collins where my landlord told me, Scott, you need to shovel the snow or you'll get a ticket. I was gone for the weekend in Denver, came back, all the snow was shoveled. I had a ticket on my door for $100. It didn't happen a second time. My landlord got notice, and I made sure that I was on top of it. And I understood. I mean, that was the teeth of getting that ticket. Because once I got that ticket, it didn't happen again. I wish everybody, you know, would shovel. And if we really want, and I've said this before, if we really want to be an inclusive community, you know, we see older people out there, we see people in wheelchairs. We really got to work together and just, you know, both. You know, we need to have tools, we need to have communication. Sometimes we got to write tickets to get that message across. It's like, hey, we all need to, you know, pick up a little bit of snow every now and then just so we can get by. But I feel really strongly like these priority corridors, you know, we need these to get to the grocery stores, to get to, you know, our markets, to get to the post office. And I'm supportive of what those solutions might be, but I really, really do not want to see another winter where I see people out in the street up to their knees in snow, and I think to myself, this isn't some rural area. We're a suburb surrounded by other cities. You know, I know we can we can find a solution to this. So that's my thought on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Going to go with Counselor Snell.
I'll make it quick. Thank you, Mayor. This is very timely. Counselor Hoppy and I just received an email from a resident that lives off of 29th. And I think one thing that Counselor Dozeman brought up earlier, property owners of commercial properties, especially those that seem to not be easy to get a hold of. This email was basically there's photos of not shoveling, and it's kind of like, that's just expected that those are not shoveled. So, I guess my question, since I don't know this, does that enforcement falls on PD in general, or CSOs, or?
Yeah, so sometimes, if we notice that people, not so much the sidewalks, but if people have plowed out into the street and it's pretty noticeable, we'll make them aware of it. But it's CSOs either usually responding to phone calls or going out and such, not necessarily, scouting to look for properties that haven't shoveled. But it's completely, within police, not really within Public Works.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for all this. This is great. Thank you.
Counselor Larson.
Thank you, Mayor. You probably know I'm on the HOA in my little community, and the single biggest expense that we have during a winter season is snow plowing. No matter how you look at it, you're going to be spending a lot of money to remove snow. If you have a big snow year, you're spending more money. The biggest concern I have when we talk about shoveling sidewalks is it's even more money. If you have just a plow driving down the street, and that expense is fairly fixed, but if you have to get people out with shovels, it gets real expensive real fast. The concern I have about commercial properties is that often, I'd be willing to bet you most of them don't even know that their plow drivers are pushing snow out into the street, and that's causing a problem. So there would have to be, I would think, some form of communication and discussion with property owners that have responsibilities for parking lots to let them know that there's a policy in place, or something has changed. Likewise, for residential, I think if you asked 9 out of 10 people that have sidewalks in front of their homes, they are not aware that they are required to shovel snow. So that would be, before we start talking about ticketing and fining people for not shoveling, I think the onus is on us to make sure that they understand that there's a policy in place, and this is their responsibility. And then I guess the question of enforcement for me becomes even enforcement, because it's a big city and there's a lot of sidewalks. And if you have a neighbor who doesn't like his neighbor, and he's calling up and saying he didn't shovel his walk, but 2 blocks away, the neighbors are all happy with each other, and so nobody gets called. So the concern I would have there is that the enforcement is even for everybody, all parts of the city. In District 4, there are many streets, especially even on the busy streets, where you simply don't have pedestrian traffic that you would in other parts of the city. So I think that needs to be under consideration when we talk about things like plowing sidewalks. And that's about it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep.
Maria, it looks like we're going to be building a lot more sidewalks in the future. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and think that we're not going to make those heated sidewalks. And
you are correct.
Are we going to? Is there different equipment that we're going to need to acquire to address sidewalks? I mean, I would think that a pickup with a plow is not quite the right piece, and certainly the big machines aren't. Where we will be at in that.
Parks does have some specialized equipment that they use. They transition it from between summer use. Some of those smaller little utility vehicles that they use with a plow in the front and a cab then that they can put on. So I think, to your point, and I think Mayor Pro Tem mentioned this too, as we build more sidewalk, I think generally the public, and I've experienced this in other communities that I've worked in, people are generally supportive of sidewalk as long as they don't have to shovel it. And so so you might say, sure, you can have the right of way, you can have part of my yard to build the sidewalk, but then you're putting an additional long-term burden on me as a property owner and then have the liability associated with that of slip and falls, all of that. So we may want to, and this is a good, maybe a preface discussion to this, is looking at that primary roadway network of sidewalks to look where we would do some plowing in those cases. And then it would take specialized equipment and obviously additional funds for that.
But still no heated sidewalk.
No, I don't think, even 2J wouldn't pay for that, so.
All right. Okay. Further discussion on this item. You know, we're blessed in Colorado to have a lot of sunshine that comes and helps us out on this. If you can just, you know, take a day or two with your grog and it'll help you out, so. But a good discussion. Have you got sort of the answers to the questions and the discussion that you were looking for?
Yes, we'll definitely touch base back again with community service officers group, and then also probably do some communication with the public, as well as specifically targeting our commercial properties about plowing into the right-of-way and making them aware of that. And just generally, I think working with the communications group, this new tool that we've got with Plow Ops is a good opportunity to educate people as well. So when they're going there, then all of a sudden we can inform them, what are the rules around plowing your sidewalks, clearing your sidewalks, how quickly, all of that, and doing that. And then I think even with a little help program, arming the community service officers with a little something that they can hand out. So if they are warning people, it's yes, you've got a warning, but here's an opportunity of how we can fix this potentially too, if you meet those certain criteria. So we'll do that. We'll focus on communication, and then long-term look at more of a program to potentially clear sidewalks.
Maria, I want to thank you very much for coming. Great presentation. Thanks for bringing your staff. Thanks for joining us tonight. You know, I think your little map is a whiz. I think that's really neat. There should be some way to have a little wager or something around where, you know, what's got, you know, so you can follow it around. And but I think that's great. And actually, I think it might be a good sort of advertising tool or enthusiasm sort of tool to get people more aware that snow's a problem on, you know, in the winter anyway. And here's some tools that the city has, and we're working on it as a city, and can you work together with us to help it done? I think the snow program, the shoveler program might go a long way to helping that. So thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it. Okay. We're moving right along here. So, going to my agenda, I think we're at staff reports. Mr. Goff.
I will defer this evening. I have nothing else. Thank you.
Okay, nothing from there. Well, elected officials reports. I'm going to start with my clerk right back here. I never get to see him, but I'm starting there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to be very quick. This flyer was placed on everybody's place around the table, and there's someone in the back wall, on the back there. Cultural Commission, led by a lady who occupies every half of my head, tells me that the Culture Commission bought every ticket to this Sunday afternoon's performance.
Saturday.
Excuse me, Saturday performance. Thank you. You actually read it. I like to read it on Sunday, though. You do not have to remember or try to type that 900-character hyperlink that's in this piece of paper. If you go to the Facebook page of the Wheat Ridge Cultural Commission, you can click on that and reserve your ticket. I would urge you not to wait, because my wife is out walking neighborhoods anytime for these free tickets.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. We've got our treasurers here. Do you have any good news for us tonight? Okay. All right, thanks. Well, good to have you here anyway. So. No good news, no bad news, though. All right. Elected officials, Mayor Pro Tem Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Local Works has Barstool Bingo tomorrow night for their fundraiser for Colorado Gives Day, 6 p.m. at Esther's. Local Works is also doing their Shop Wadsworth campaign. It's wrapping up on the 12th, so if you have been shopping Wadsworth, get all your receipts turned in. Those of you guys who joined us at Chick-fil-A on Thursday, that was a lot of fun. Also, the Lake Arbor Apartments, really, really impressive, affordable, attainable housing. They're really, really, really cool program they're doing there. And the tree lighting on Saturday was a lot of fun. Thank you for the city of Wheat Ridge and everybody who was there for that. And it was kind of a weird night. I think many of us were there. Peter Aguero went to his candlelit vigil, and he was a great man and had a great business on 38th for a long time. And I got to know him a long time ago when I was working at the tire shop, and I really appreciated him as a community member and as a business owner. So I just wanted to give my thoughts and prayers to his family. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Additional elected officials matters? Councilor Ohm.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be quick. Just want to say thank you last week for the Wish for Wheels. And we had some very generous sponsors, ECI, Architera, Intermountain Health. Want to definitely thank city staff, Director Karen O'Donnell and Brandon Altenberg. It was pretty amazing to see how fast everything got put together, the wonderful support of city staff. I was extremely surprised that we were able to get there, and the community turnout. It was such a wonderful, it was a beautiful Colorado day, you know, just gorgeous Colorado blue sky day. Seeing those little kids, and with my co-council member, or council member Schnell, we put bikes together with these kids, and I had some, you know, my kid that I helped, she was making me run circles, helping around that bike, and I was getting a little tired after a while, and I had to tell her, you know, I think it's time to go back to school, and your parents are gonna have to help you with that, but I know that she and everybody there that day, we had really good memories. And before the day was over, Councilmember Snell and I forget her last name, Lindsay from Intermountain Health, was already asking like, hey, when are we gonna do the next one? And so I think maybe you mentioned Pennington would be you know, another school that, and so there's definitely support. I'm working on that. We have a lot more lead time. Probably won't happen this winter. We'll wait for a really beautiful day, but just want to put that out there. Thank you so much for the city and everybody else.
Councilor Hulteen.
Thank you. I continue to get yelled at by the goats at Happiness Gardens when I walk by. In particular, Willie Nelson has things to say. I wanted to share, I went to the CC4CA retreat this last week, and we had a little happy hour afterwards with just like membership from across the metro area. And when I got to the little happy hour, Caleb Betzold was there, who had come from Wheat Ridge and is now sustainability up in Louisville. And then I saw Mara Owen, who used to be at then Wheat Ridge 2020 and is now been hired by Heather Geyer to be the first sustainability program manager for the city of Thornton. Or North Glen, sorry, I always get those confused. I had to apologize to the mayor of one of those cities for messing it up. I literally can always confuse them, and that was problematic when I was in real estate.
Mayor Coleman, either one.
Yeah, thank you. But it struck me while I was standing there, you know, talking to everyone and just seeing all the great things that come out of Wheat Ridge and get exported into other communities. So just an affirmation of we have great people doing great work here, and they sometimes move on to go do great work in other places. But there was a high concentration of Wheat Ridge greatness in the room. So that's all I've got.
Thank you. Any more? Okay. I want to great to go to Chick-fil-A last Thursday morning. In the afternoon, we had the ribbon cutting for the Tabor Lake Apartments down there at the old Howard Johnson's. That's a really great project, and we're glad to have that workforce housing coming in. Saturday, I want to say that I was really proud of our community to be able to come together for the tree lighting and a ceremony. Staff did a great job of getting that together, and very festive, we were able to honor Peter Damian and the vigil that happened across the street, integrate those two things together, and I think it's a strength of our community that we're able to adapt and be considerate and thinking about all the people that live in our community. We've got another ribbon cutting set up for this Saturday morning at 10:30 at Anderson Park to dedicate our new playground. So if you're able to join us on Saturday morning, dress up. I guess it's a dress warm day, but maybe we'll have a chance to shovel some snow before we go. So anyway, we will be back here 1 week from tonight in a regular council meeting. Is there any more business to come before our study session? Seeing none, we will stand adjourned. Thank you all. Safely home.